Hello and welcome to the Con Couple. I'm Richard,
I'm Caroline.
and we go to a frankly bizarre number of cons every year.
Not this weekend, though.
Not this weekend. No, we were a little busy on Saturday this weekend because it was our university's graduation.
Hooray.
That means you're off for your summer break. You can't
That
complain.
part's nice. The graduation part was. We said we weren't going to review graduation on this podcast.
We are not going to review
there
graduation.
are reasons for that.
No, it was busy. There was just a lot of people there, which again, a lot of undergrads, a lot of people bringing guests. And it was a very busy day.
Yeah. So as a result of that, we've decided to do something a bit different this episode because again, we normally review cons. We can't review a con this weekend because I couldn't find like a one-day con that we could do this weekend that fit around graduation. It's also Mother's Day today, which doesn't matter to me because my mother is dead, and Mother's Day is a separate holiday in the UK, so it doesn't matter to you either. But it matters to most people.
Yeah, Mother's Day was like a month ago for me. Which is, incidentally, if you're a British person living in America, it is really fun to ask people what they got their mother for Mother's Day the day after British Mother's Day and watch them panic.
Yep.
It's great.
But also, I feel like, I don't know. As somebody with a dead mom, I do wish that we had stuff for this holiday for people who don't want to grieve or honor their mother in any deep sense, but just kind of want to ignore it. But they don't have a lot of stuff for people who just kind of want to ignore it, and it frustrates me. That's my own complaint about stuff.
That's fair. So, should we tell them what we are going to do this episode?
So, we've decided to create an incredibly fake award show for cons that are near us.
That we've been to, personally.
Yeah, it's a very niche award.
Yeah. Welcome to the Connies!
The Connies! Also, we don't put in sound effects, which we should probably make the sound more legit. Okay.
Nah, that requires editing.
So a couple ground rules. These are categories we made up. We didn't really talk about them beforehand other than making them up together. So
we didn't even make that many of them up together. I threw in about 3 or 4 suggestions, and the rest is mostly you.
Yeah, I just kind of threw a bunch of stuff on the sheet. So this is not going to be a very organized award show where we've thought in detail about it. We're probably just going to name cons that were good at the particular thing that we're listing.
Yep.
So we might forget a con that we've been to. We're also going to be talking about cons that we haven't covered on this podcast because we obviously went to cons before we started this podcast.
Yep.
So some of their names might come up. And a general ground rule we have for this podcast generally is that for small local cons that are run by individuals or small groups, we tend not to call them out too much on negative stuff. We have a couple minor criticisms of those small cons, which we talk about on the podcast, but we're not going to talk about train wrecks of disasters that were either not their fault or clearly just something they hadn't thought of yet because they're a new con. That doesn't seem really fair to them. And it also calls out specific people who are volunteering and typically doing charity work. And I don't want to make people who feel charity work feel bad.
Yeah. Whereas, if it's a big corporate con that did something very, very badly, yeah, that we're going to put on blast for, because
most corporate cons do about 20-ish shows a year, and they do them to make money, and they make a lot of money or are losing a lot of money with the rate they're expanding, so they deserve to be put on blast a little bit more than somebody who's doing a local convention in their hometown to raise money for a local charity. It's just a different ballgame.
Yeah.
There are a couple borderline cases, I would say. AnthroCon, which we'll be probably talking about a bit today, is kind of a borderline case. It's a non-for-profit con.
But it is also 20,000 people.
Yeah.
So, welcome to skirting the line of what's in the... Yeah.
Yeah, so we might talk about that, and we'll keep in mind that it is run by volunteers, and it's hard for volunteers to run that con, but otherwise, sometimes we might talk about cons in the abstract, if there's a small con that did something that was kind of horrifyingly wrong, as opposed to saying their name, because that's not really fair.
Yeah, we're not going to call them out specifically, but we will talk about things that happened.
Yes.
Because this is kind of we're calling this a quote-unquote awards show, but we are going to we're going to talk about someone who did a thing well, and then some examples of how we've seen it not done well, I think is the best way to describe it.
Or vice versa. So there's not it's a loose concept.
As per usual, we're mostly just riffing.
Concept.
Yeah. Because we decided to take a 3-hour drive to get food this morning.
Yeah, because there was nothing... Well, we normally take a 3-hour drive on the weekend to go to a con, and we can't do that this weekend, and we can't just leave the drive part out.
Yeah, this con podcast doesn't really work without us driving. So, as per usual, usual reminders, we are recording this in our car. We are using hands-free lapel mics, so we are perfectly fine to do that. And any button pushing will be done by the person who is not driving.
Which is me. But the weather is better this weekend.
The weather is lovely this weekend.
And I will also say, if this is somehow the first episode of our podcast you're listening to, I might advise picking a different episode. This is probably not going to be.
Yeah, this is out of our usual format, but
Yeah.
nobody listens to this podcast anyway.
Okay, so any more disclaimers we need to get out of the way?
Not that I'm aware of. If anything else comes up, we'll just address it as it happens.
And we're not doing awards like Best Con, because that's too hard. Cons do stuff differently.
Yeah.
So where do you want to start?
Well, should we start at the beginning with registration?
Sure. Registration.
You want to explain the category?
Oh, I thought you were explaining the category. It's
Yeah.
fine, So, registration. Obviously, to get into a con, you typically have to go up to a booth and scan a QR code or something and get a badge that you either are buying there or are pre-registered to get. Some cons do mail badges. We're going to Gen Con since we've committed to that this year. They're mailing our badges, hopefully.
Yep.
But most cons, you just get your badges there. So, what cons do registration well, and what cons do registration poorly?
So, I will freely admit that this year, I think that Fan Expo actually did a really good job of that registration
Yes.
process. That was smooth and efficient. You walked up, you scanned your QR code if you'd pre-registered. They checked, they went, yep, you're good, handed you a badge, and you immediately kind of went around the corner. That was pretty smooth. With that said, I'm not a fan of their, you have to activate the badge thing afterwards. That's kind of annoying.
One thing I like that GalaxyCon did, I think this was for Animate last year, I'll see if they're doing it again, is they had a special pickup day on Thursday, because their con ran Friday through Sunday, but you could go to a Dave & Buster's, because I think they had a tie-in where you would eat in Dave & Buster's. We did not eat in Dave & Buster's. We just went down to Columbus and picked up our badge at a Dave & Buster's. Took 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we didn't have to deal with registration the rest of the weekend. I liked that.
Yep. Because we have definitely seen some problematically long registration lines. Like the first con we ever went to was a fairly large convention, and on the Saturday, because we had to wait because we got our badges on the Friday, and it probably took half an hour.
Yeah.
And on the Saturday, we were looking at the line, and it was stretching halfway down the Columbus Convention Center, and we just looked at that and went, well, I'm glad we didn't pick up our badges today.
Yeah. Saturday pickup tends to be a heaving time, as does when a convention first opens. Typically, there's an hour or two kind of line. Anthrocon, I knew we were going to get to that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Had some registration problems last summer. So Anthrocon's a major furry con in Pittsburgh that has about 20,000 people. I think that's their expected count this year.
Yeah. I think last year were technically the largest
Furry convention.
Furry convention, thank you. I almost said anthro convention. That's not quite right. But yeah, I think they were technically the largest furry convention in the US. I get the impression there's some friendly rivalry between a couple of fairly big ones as to.
Furry Atlanta, or whatever it's called, is this weekend. We obviously could not go to that because of one, it's in Atlanta, which is a pretty big drive for us, and two, graduation was this weekend. But
Yep.
We'll see what numbers they're doing, because it might be a record-breaking year for them too.
Yeah.
So there were some registration problems there. We went last year. I will say, because of my disability, I can't stand in long lines, particularly long lines that are outside. We went up there and asked if we could get into the accessibility line. Accessibility line was great, ran smoothly. I think we're out of there in about 20 minutes.
Yeah. It was mostly a case of we did have to go up and ask for it, which is not... It's not a great thing when you have to ask for the accessibility stuff, but at the same time, there wasn't really
And because of how big the line was, and because it was chained for 4 or 5 people, we did have to ask 4 or 5 people in succession where we were supposed to go next, and this chain of people who were
Yep.
handing people off to other people.
Yep.
But they were good. They didn't give me any shenanigans because my disability is not a visible disability, which I appreciated.
Yeah. But yeah, so again, things that are done well, things that are done poorly, and a lot of it does come down to At a small con, they can quite happily have 2 or 3 people manning a registration booth, and they'll be fine.
Yeah, there's a reason why small cons can't really like quote unquote win this category, and that's or lose this category. It's just that small cons, for the most part, you just walk up and you get your tickets, and it's a 5-minute process.
Yeah.
It's at most maybe 10 or 15 minutes if it's like rush hour at that particular con at that particular time.
Yeah, like if it's right when they open and it's the kind of con where everybody turns up on Friday, looking at you, either small furry cons or steampunk cons, like for whatever reason, people love taking Friday off to go to those things. Probably because they're a little less common.
Yep.
So that it is worth them taking the full 3 days, whereas for a lot of like anime cons, Saturday morning is going to be the heaving time at registration because that's the time people get off work and they go.
So yeah, but with smaller cons, it's hard for them to really mess up their registration process. Like at some smaller cons, we just legitimately have to just give them our name and then they pull our badge off an alphabetical list rather than doing a QR code thing, which works fine. It just that's not going to scale if you get to like 20,000 people and you're going to have multiple people named like Sarah Miller.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's that one. You want to give like a Connie is like the final thing to go off on?
I am honestly tempted to give it to Fan Expo this year.
Okay.
Like, I had problems with Fan Expo this year, but the registration line was not one of them.
Cool.
Like, it was very smooth, very efficient, and even at the peak hours on Saturday, or that peak registration time on Saturday, it was moving fast.
Mm.
Like, I don't think anybody was stuck in a long registration line at that.
So congratulations, you get our Connie. I'm sorry we're not great at like the sound effects. I'm sure Fan Expo will definitely put that on their website. That this podcast is giving them a Connie.
Yep.
Clearly, it's going to like put them on the map.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So we're doing what?
Next category. You have the list.
Do you want to do opening ceremonies since we're talking about beginning stuff?
Makes sense to me.
Okay. Can you remember enough opening ceremonies?
I can remember a few.
Okay.
So opening ceremonies are an interesting thing because at a lot of cons, they're not really a thing you need to go to. They're mostly going to be, talking about the various things that are on that weekend, introducing everybody, maybe giving a shout out to like certain specific celebrity guests if the con has a bunch of those.
Sometimes they give away free stuff. That's cool.
Yep.
Sometimes they explain stuff that you wouldn't otherwise know, but they're not like. I've never been to one that was like required attendance, and half the time they're like at a time period when the con has just started and a lot of people can't be there anyway.
So they're usually relatively quiet. It's usually intended to be a cute kickoff thing. But this is one where smaller cons tend to have a massive advantage over big cons.
Mm-hmm. Some big cons don't even have them. Like I'm pretty sure GalaxyCon and Fan Expo don't.
Yeah, I don't remember them having them. So this is one where my gut instinct is to say KaziCon. I don't even know if I'd say KaziCon this year, but it might be KaziCon last year. Just for the sheer wholesomeness of the process. Like at some cons opening ceremonies, it feels like they're trying to shill you the con, and it's a weird sentence to say because at that point you've already bought your ticket. But it feels like what they're trying to do is tell you everything that's going to be at the con so that you get your money's worth. Whereas at KaziCon, it really feels like they're trying to tell you everything that's at the con because they think it's really cool. And they actively are like, what are you all looking forward to this weekend?
Yeah, it's very participatory, which I do like. I thought OMG Con, which is one we haven't talked about yet. We can't go to this one this summer, so I do want to shout them out a little bit because it's Contrasting Origins this year. That's a con in Kentucky we might talk a little bit more about. I thought they had a good opening ceremony where it was a bunch of people who were just kind of really excited about OMG Con.
Yeah. Again, that's kind of what you want from a good opening ceremony. It's there to get you hyped. I would also shout out Motor City Steam for just going the extra mile and having a full-on skit.
Yeah, they had a skit
ceremony.
For heroes versus villains versus whatever else. The theme was heroes and villains and monsters and stuff that year.
Yeah, they resurrected the con chair from the dead Frankenstein style.
It was very cute, and they did the putting on the Ritz skit.
From Young Frankenstein, yeah. But you get, I love that kind of,
Yeah.
It's silly, it's fun, it gets everybody in the right kind of mood to just have fun at the weekend. As opposed to some opening ceremonies which are here's our vendors hall. Please go spend money. Here's our here's our celebrity guests. Please go buy their autographs. Like it really does. Like they do feel like the kind of cons that are labors of love, and that is something that an opening ceremony like that is good for. It lets you know what the people running the con think the most important thing at the con is, and for this one, it was just have fun, nerd out with us, and we'll see you all weekend.
Which is pretty cool. And I do like it a lot that they like preparing. And again, this is something that it's typically going to be smaller cons are going to have this, more local cons, and they're also not at board gaming or tabletop conventions most of the time because you kind of just play games. A couple I think have them, but I've never really been to one that does. Because everyone would rather be playing a game than listen to people talk about it. So, although I would say I would actually appreciate it an opening ceremony at some board games or tabletop cons just to explain stuff like how the pay to play to win games work, how the raffle tickets work. Because most of these cons have these things. Explain that they have a swap meet market thing on Sunday because some of them do. Sometimes board game cons have a little bit of trouble getting information out to their guests just because they have to get a lot of information out to their guests.
Yeah. Which again, that's kind of an issue with board game cons generally. That's not calling any specific board game con out.
So who do you want to give our Connie to?
I think it's got to be KaziCon. Like, I don't know if I can...
I will do a joint one between that and Bourbon City Steam, because thank you for bringing up the Bourbon City Steam, like, skit at the beginning, and I really like that. So you guys get our joint Connie in opening ceremonies. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Oh, God, you're going to make that pun like 5 times, aren't you?
Well, it'd be good if I could, like, give them little statues out the next time we go to these cons. I might 3D print some at some point.
That would require us to own a 3D printer.
Yeah, well.
I want one, but it's mostly just doing the research to find one that's the right kind of level that we want. And having somewhere to put it. Mm-hmm. That's an issue.
So what? Do you want to do parking or venue next?
Let's do venue, because the venue is a very, very easy Connie for us.
We know if anyone's listening to this that's heard more than one episode of this podcast, I'm sure you know what's winning.
Yeah, so
let's
do some honorable mentions beforehand.
And also, I want to point out that venue is typically the thing that is least within a con's control. Mm-hmm. Cons have a budget, they have to stay within that budget. Yeah.
They're also in a given geographic area.
And there's also other stuff that's on during the weekend that they have to plan around, and some venues aren't willing to host conventions for a variety of reasons. Like, it's not something that's terribly, like, easy to choose from, so I do want to say this is more just, like, kind of a bonus thing if a con's in a certain location you happen to like, but it's not something I ever blame the con for.
No, I would concur with that.
Except for the major ones, because, again, you guys have a budget that's ridiculous, so get a space that works, or at the very least, utilize the space in a way that makes sense.
Coming back to Fan Expo again there. Yeah, we'll give you an award for the things we think you deserve an award for, and we'll slag you off for the things we think you did badly. But, yeah, so... My brain went blank.
Honorable mentions for venue.
Honorable mentions for venue. I do actually quite like the Pittsburgh Convention Center.
I do too.
It's a little more artistic and a little less practical than some we've been in. But it's for the most part, it's a very nice space. And if you're there for a con at the right time of year, like, it's got rooftop access with some really quite nice views of the city, and it's a very nice space.
Yeah, I like it a lot too. I'm trying to think if there's any, like, smaller venues I liked.
Kind of like the one that OMG Con was at.
Yeah, the OMG Con venue was nice, and there have been a couple similar venues, like I think it's Tabasa Con has a similar venue or very similar setup to OMG Con. I think they were done by the same designer. They're not in the same place. They're, in fact, very different places, but they are very similar looking convention centers that are very nice for the type of cons that are held there.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, that's Tsubasa Con was the... And yeah, like, again, those are both very nice, very good convention centers that serve their function pretty well. I think the main issue I have with the one in Pittsburgh is just it doesn't really have quite enough entrances for how many people are going in and out of it, but
And the Dayton Convention Center, which went to a Catacon at, I think could be good. It's just they're still kind of in the middle of construction with it.
Yeah, I get the impression it's had some very, very major renovation work being done over the last few years, and they're not finished with it yet.
Yeah.
Like, it's a good space, and once it is once they're actually finished renovating it, I think it's going to be really nice. But there's definitely been some shenanigans on that front, which again, that's something that's completely beyond the control of the cons.
But you know where our Connie is going to this one.
Yeah. Greater Columbus Convention Center, take it and run with it. You're just ridiculously good.
It's both artistic and extremely functional.
And it scales really dang well. Like, pretty much whatever size of convention you've got, you can use part of the Hyatt. You could use the entire convention center. You could use, one. You could use just the A room blocks. You can use the entire vendors hall. It is so scalable and has so much versatility.
I'm just gonna 3D print as little trophy called a Connie and just leave it on one of the benches there.
I just confuse the heck out of somebody.
Yeah. It's not gonna be the weirdest thing people have found in that hallway by any means.
Oh goodness, no.
So this leads to, I think, a separate side category, which is venue or space utilization.
Yes.
Which is in the cons control.
Yes. So again, for some smaller cons, you're quite limited in what you have access to. Maybe you can only afford a basic hotel that's nominally got a convention center attached to it, but not a very good one.
And you can't always control stuff like sound bleed between the rooms because that's an acoustics issue, and sometimes there's just going to be sound bleed. Now, it doesn't really make sense to put a rave next to a poetry reading, which we've seen some cons do.
We have seen that happen.
So you do want to think about space in terms of that, but I do get the idea that there's probably going to be some sound bleed at some venues, regardless of how you try to stack stuff.
Yeah. So again, this arguably, I feel like we should. This is an award that I feel needs to go to the worst venue that had a con that somehow made it work anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think if we've got any specific examples that did that.
Honestly, Anthro Ohio, not this year, but the year before, I thought did a pretty good job with a con that unexpectedly got an additional 1,000 attendees in the last 2 days.
Yeah.
A space that was too small for it. I thought they managed about as well as they could.
They did actually do a really phenomenal job of just okay, this is not quite what we planned for. We're going to have to make this work somehow. And they did actually, for the most part, do that.
Mm-hmm.
Although there was definitely some jank, but I do feel like we might have to give the award to them just for, as you said, overcoming the adversity.
Yeah. They were honest about it. They were upfront with it. They did a good job of trying to get people where they needed to go. And it wasn't perfect. Some rooms were definitely more packed than they needed to be. And not everyone could get into everything they wanted to, but they tried their best.
Yeah.
And they did it in a way that was largely accessible, which is also generally when cons get overcrowded is when they get less accessible. This was still fairly accessible.
Yeah.
And again, I do want to emphasize when I talk about accessibility, I am talking from my own perspective as a disabled person. Obviously, I, like all people, don't have all the disabilities, so I can't say it's accessible for absolutely everyone, but it met my needs well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. Do we have any... I do feel like for our example of doing it badly, we are going back to the Well of Fan Expo.
Yes, I've seen a couple smaller cons also kind of do it badly. Like having all the panel rooms in one area or devoting too much space to stuff like video game rooms and stuff like that. We've seen a few times.
We've seen that a couple of times, which again, I'm more forgiving of that on first year cons because they don't know what's going to be popular.
Yeah.
If they think that one particular thing's going to be more of a draw than it is, and that ends up balancing out, and again, as long as they learn from it, I don't really have a problem.
I also want to, I'm trying to think about, I feel like a Catacon did a very good job because we haven't chatted out a lot of table cons yet in terms of, as we talked about a little bit last week with board gaming cons, sound bleed between tables is going to be a big issue. And I felt like a Catacon, spent a lot of time trying to think and maneuver around that.
I would say so, because I do feel like their RPG tables were placed pretty much all the board gaming was going on in one big hall, apart from a few private rooms upstairs for some specific things. And I do feel like, for the most part, the RPG tables were far enough apart that you weren't getting too much sound bleed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could hear the conversation in the room, but unless, barring moments when somebody gets an entire table to honk simultaneously, looking at nobody in particular, you weren't getting too much crossover, and I think that was good. So yeah, I do agree that they did a good job.
Mm-hmm. And they also have the option to use private rooms for certain events, like the con. I don't know what their actual title is. I think they just might be the owner of the con, Michael.
Con chair, something like that.
Does private events up there, but you can request if you have a game that you think you needs a private space, you can request it and use those private spaces there, which is very cool. There's not a lot of tabletop cons that let you do that. If you wanted to do like a LARP or...
somebody was doing Dread at one point, and if you're not familiar with the way Dread works, it's a horror-based system that uses a Jenga tower as its mechanic. The idea being that, like, when you pull out the Jenga block that makes the tower fall over, that's when bad things happen to your character. So it's all about ratcheting up the tension across a session as the tower gets wobblier and wobblier. And obviously, if you're in a room with a lot of people, a lot of crosstalk, and people walking past your table in a way that might nudge your table and that Jenga tower, that's a problem.
Yeah, so Dread really works from the suspense of the Jenga tower, and that just works way better if you're in a private room.
Yeah. So the fact that that was an available option, I suspect if you wanted those, you probably have to request them quite early.
I mean, when I was, because we ran games at that one last November, when I was filling out the form, I still had the option to request a private room. And I do think at that point I would have gotten it, because the space was utilized in the evening for private events, but during the day it was open. And because we tend to generally run during the day, I think if we wanted a private room, we probably would have gotten it.
That's fine. We didn't need it for what we were running.
We did not need it, so... and I'm not going to request one unless I have a game that specifically like requires it.
Yeah.
But it was good to know that it's an option if you wanted to try something more experimental. And knowing the con chair / owner, I don't actually know people's titles. Michael, like, he's very amenable to anyone who wants to try something experimental at his con. So
yeah, which is always good.
And I will say, space utilization is also difficult to kind of analyze because when it is done well, you don't really tend to notice it. You only notice it when it's done poorly.
Yeah. Like, one poor piece of space utilization that we have seen recently was one convention that it's very common for conventions to have like part of their convention in a hotel and part in a convention center. But those are normally attached. We were at one recently that I'm not going to call out by name that was having issues with that. It was getting between the two was not as easy as it should have been.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of hotel shuttles generally. It's part of the reason I try to avoid larger cons that are further apart in space. It's probably why I'll never go to Dragon Con. It terrifies me.
Yeah. Not unless somebody pays us a lot of money to go to it.
Well, and as panel people, anything that involves you taking a bus between buildings to do paneling means you're just effectively like trapped in one building and you're cut off from half the paneling. That just kind of sucks. So.
Yeah. And we've seen that at a couple of cons, which it usually comes from when a con outgrows its venue, and their solution is to keep the current venue and add another venue, which is usually a hodgepodge solution until they can find an actual larger venue. And so it's not the worst solution, but it's not particularly great either.
So one kind of actually do want to call it in a positive sense here is the Sengawa project. That was one of the ones we went to earlier this year before we started this podcast, who had an interesting problem of just being we found out, gifted a couple of very weird rooms in a very weird hotel.
Yeah.
And I thought they did a fairly good job of like utilizing that space the best they could. You want to explain this?
Yeah.
It's very weird.
So at this particular convention, the hotel had like a series of office rooms that prior to COVID were being rented out by companies.
Yep.
And then COVID happened, the companies stopped renting them, and they've just never come back. So those rooms basically had not been used for anything in a while. So they basically just said to the con, do you want them? We'll throw them in for free on top of what you're currently paying for the rest of the space. And the con was like, okay.
Yeah, so it was just, they had a couple of like what you traditionally think of, like I think more traditional convention center like spaces on the ground floor, but like Sky Tower Hotel, like
Yep.
one of those with like fairly little ground space and then stacks up.
Yep.
So they had that, and then they had a bunch of stuff on the 6th and 7th floors of the same hotel.
Yeah.
There were just weird office space that was left over.
Yeah, like clearly not designed to be used in a convention, but
Yeah. Well, they didn't put panels there though. They put some games in
Yep.
the backspace, which I think worked fine for that because this wasn't a gaming con.
Yeah.
So it was pretty chill, and they let us like take games and stuff like that to play. So
they also had their cat cafe up there. And yes, the cat cafe is exactly what you think it is.
it wasn't even really a cat cafe. It was just like there were cats.
Yeah.
Because they argued that because it wasn't an official convention space, it was technically part of the hotel, and the hotel lets you bring in animals, that they should be allowed to bring in animals into that space.
Given that they were they raising money for that?
They were
cat
raising
adoption?
money for the adoption, and all the cats there pretty much you could adopt. And
Yeah.
a lot of them got adopted that weekend. And
Yep.
then, because we went to a panel at this convention where it was one of those behind the scenes talkback panels, which I love when cons do that.
Yeah, do more of those cons. For one thing, they're really useful for this podcast.
They basically were like, so they were kind of hesitant with this argument, and were like, I don't know if that really counts because they're not really technically hotel rooms. We would have showed up with a bunch of cats, and they saw the cats, and they were like, okay, you can bring the cats in.
Yeah.
And it was fun to just have a room at a con where you get to play with cats.
So yeah. So best utilization of con space. Who are we giving the Connie to?
I honestly might say the Sengawa Project just because they did something interesting with a really weird space.
I can see that argument. I'm almost tempted to give it to a catacomb, but I think the Sangao project was probably having to overcome significant or more significant challenges.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I probably agree with you that it's going to go to them. But, again, a lot of very good entries on this one. A lot of just very good utilization of space.
And very creative uses of space also.
Yeah. So, do we want to talk about accessibility and security next?
Do you want to do that? Or do you want to do parking? Parking's not going to take long.
Parking is a pretty quick one.
If it's free, we like it. That's the short version.
Yeah.
If it's free and there's spots.
Yep. So honestly, the Crown Plaza actually has pretty good parking.
That's the smaller convention center in Columbus that most smaller cons start out of before graduating to the Columbus Convention Center because it's significantly cheaper.
Yeah, the Columbus Convention Center is a really good convention center.
Their parking is awful.
No, here's the thing. Their parking is really good. There's lots of it. It's just stupidly overpriced. Yeah. Like if you're going to a 3-day con, you're spending minimum $70 on parking.
There are ways to do it cheaper. We tend to prioritize comfort because of disabilities, over accessible parking. So.
Yeah. So if anybody from the Greater Columbus Convention Center listens to this, we love you. Please make your parking cheaper again. It was like $12 2 years ago, and it's gone up.
So Crown Plaza, for a while, I think it's called Eagle Crest in Michigan, had great free parking for one event, and then decided to charge $15 for the other event for some reason.
Yeah, that was weird.
Anything that's in Chicago is horrifying.
Yeah, do not plan on parking in Chicago. The one con we've been to in Chicago, which was
Con Delete, which not on them, but the parking there was an absolute nightmare because again, Chicago.
Yeah,
it's just Chicago.
Yeah, it was about $45 a day, but if you were attending an event at the hotel, so you were either staying at the hotel or you were attending the convention, you could get it. What's the official term?
Am I also blanking on that term?
Validated. Validated, thank you. Yeah, you could get your parking validated and it would be quite a bit cheaper, but it was still on the high end of what we're prepared to pay for parking.
You know what I might give this? You remember I went to Sabasacon, West Virginia. Mm-hmm. They had a parking thing for, I think, $5 that only took cash, which we didn't have on the way in. They told us we could just park and pay them the next day.
Yeah, which we did.
We did pay them the next day.
But
and they were just like, you don't actually have, even then they were confused because they clearly didn't want us to pay them.
Yeah, I was just like, no, you gave us free parking yesterday. I do not mind giving you $10 today. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, which that was reasonable. It was $5 a day. That's pretty reasonable for parking.
Yeah.
The parking attendants are clearly trying to like make it so you don't have to pay, which is also like I probably shouldn't say that, but go them for being bros.
Oh, it was great because it was a case of, oh yeah, you associated with this con? Not really. Well, you're in costume. You've like to participate in the costume contest? Uh, maybe. You're associated with the con. Here's your free parking. Like, okay, thanks.
Yeah, I think we just have to give it to them in terms of like the bromanship there was with trying to get as many people free parking as possible.
That was really nice. Like, I don't think they were supposed to do that, and I really hope we didn't just get somebody in trouble. But nobody listens to this podcast, so it's fine.
We don't even know who specifically it was. There were multiple people working that day.
Yeah, there were a bunch of people.
So
again, just they generally did a great job. Yeah, I think you're right. I think the parking award has to go to them.
Yes.
It wasn't free, but man, did they make it a nicer process.
The anti-parking award might have to go to Cincinnati Comic-Con.
You think?
We got scammed at that one, remember?
We did.
Which was not on the con.
I mean, you didn't, I did. But
it was one of those situations that was kind of unavoidable. Somebody was standing saying that the thing was broken and basically making you give them money even though they didn't look legitimate. But the thing is, one, you're in line, there's cars in front of you and behind you, so you can't really like move. You don't want to directly confront a person because that can be dangerous. So you did the right thing by just paying them, and the parking lot was great about like giving us our money back.
Yeah, when we left at the end of the day, and like, we ended up having to do the push for attention. They're going to be like, yeah, I got given this thing by a guy in the way and who was taking cash, and their response was basically, another one. They basically took our information in case they needed to contact us for a police report. They never did that. But like, other than that, they just let us go without having to like pay the lost ticket fine.
And again, I don't want to like, if anyone's in a position where they need money that badly, I don't really want to like shame them any more than that. You know what I mean?
I would 100% agree with that. Like, again, it's mostly just a case of, again, in all honesty, I feel like the parking lot there kind of handled it the best way they possibly could, so I don't really want to blame them for it. So I'm not convinced they deserve like the worst parking award.
Yeah, I don't really think so either. And it's hard to like, parking relates a lot to venues, cons don't control it, so
yeah.
Generally, if you're in a bigger city or you're in a downtown area, it's going to cost more and be more expensive.
Yeah.
I will say Sengawa Project did send me a survey. I don't remember if I told you, because it looks like they're thinking about changing venues for next year to somewhere that's out of downtown Pittsburgh.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. I said we were in favor of. Not everyone might be in favor of that, but I would be, because that probably makes parking and space a little bit easier to access. So we'll see if that happens. Sengawa Project, if we've not mentioned it before, is by the same people who do Techo. It's like their smaller sired pet project.
Yeah. 18 plus only con. It lets them do kind of some slightly weirder stuff.
They have a Japanese liquor tasting there, and we went to this before we started doing podcast stuff. But we probably will review it next year if it's still going on.
Yep.
Okay, so that's parking. Very exciting. I know everyone was very exciting to hear a review of the parking. Okay, you want to do a security and accessibility now?
Security and accessibility. So, as somebody with a disability,
are we doing these as separate categories?
I was assuming they were kind of all lumped into one because overdoing one kind of screws over the other.
Okay.
So, because you are somebody with a disability, you have specific needs that not everybody else has.
But again, my needs are going to be different from everyone else's needs. And I get, like, with any con, venue, event where you have people you don't personally know coming, you're probably not going to be able to account for absolutely everyone's issues.
Yeah.
But that's also why I think it's important to make sure that the policies and procedures you have in place lead to as few people having to ask exceptions for themselves as possible.
Yes. That's about the level I'm on. So, cons that have done things really quite well. For a start, any con that just lets you go into the panel rooms without, like, bothering to, check, great.
So I would honestly give a very, very big shout out at MCFC for this. So that's Motor City FurCon. Because the previous years, I think we talked about it in their episode, had bomb threats and mandatory outside time.
Yep.
So they didn't have to increase the security presence, but they did it in a way that was like pretty not noticeable.
Yeah, like we saw a couple of cops hanging around at one point chatting to their security team. That was it.
But they didn't do mandatory bag checks, which I hate mandatory bag checks. I get the thought behind them, but they're just...
It's security theater.
It bogs everything down. Like, I understand that it's necessary for stuff like prop checks and things like that to get your props checked, just to make sure no one's like carrying a real weapon and to make people feel safer if they have to. Because I'm somebody who gets kind of uneasy when they see guns generally in life, even if they're prop guns. So knowing that they've been checked does help me.
Yeah.
But bag checks are security theater.
Yeah.
Metal detectors are also security theater.
Yeah, because they actually don't work that well, generally speaking.
And they don't really do anything. And it basically just, it makes it impossible, because generally once you have your badge, being able to come and go from the con as you please is kind of a major both accessibility thing and just like pleasant experience. And if you have to like go in and out of security door every time you enter or leave a con, it's just tiring.
It's just not fun. You know, so I think we know what the worst one here is, like by a long shot.
We're calling a specific con out when we're saying this, and that's...
This is Cincinnati Comic Con.
I do want to emphasize that the last time we went there, they were in the downtown convention center. They've since moved to a convention center that's further out. Those of you who've been to Cincinnati know it's kind of a very big urban sprawl area that takes up like 8 hour-long radius around it. So they've moved out of the center of that and more off to the lake side. So the new venue might be better than the old venue, but the old venue was miserable bad to get in and out of.
Like we are talking massive lines outside as a result of the security procedures.
Mm-hmm. And that's not great. And OMG Con has had, or not OMG Con, but we'll talk about that one in a minute. MCFC has had major threats to their security and are still managing to make people there feel safe while still being a really accessible venue.
Yeah.
When they've had like bomb threats, which I think is amazing.
Yeah. Like I do not know how they managed to thread that particular needle so goddamn well. Like that was really good on their part.
OMG Con was one we actually did briefly talk about before, and I do want to talk about again now that we're on recording.
So OMG Con had a bit of an issue this year, which last year, which was that the venue where they were hosting it was kind of the only like venue in town. And right outside it on the Saturday night was a music festival. I don't think they knew that was going to be happening when they arranged the venue time. Mm-hmm. I get the impression they talked to the city when they found out and let the city know that they were not happy with this decision, but that there was nothing they could do about it. But I do think that they handled that about as well as they possibly could have, specifically because they discussed this with the convention center. Because they booked out the entire convention center, the convention center's attitude is, you have booked out the entire convention center, you own it for the weekend. If you want to set your security policies such that after a certain time, you have to have a con badge to get inside, you can do that. And that's exactly what they did.
They did. Which, again, was nice. People were very drunk outside. I was with you, and as a woman, I didn't feel completely safe outside, and we were just walking to the car. It was not bad, and obviously the outside space is not a space that they can control, but they made sure that inside space, which would have been filled with drunken idiots, was not. It was perfectly safe for congoers. Yeah,
I guarantee you, if they hadn't made the decisions they did, we would have had a lot of drunk people in the lobby looking for the nearest bathroom.
Yeah. And you do have to keep in mind that particular area and that particular spot, places that tend to be a bit more rural also, as you can expect in America, run a little bit more conservative, which means that if you are gender fluid, trans, any type of non-conforming status, it can feel a little bit unsafer in those areas for you. So keeping people with those statuses protected at anime cons, which are often a safe haven for them, I think it's really good and really smart.
Yeah. So again, it's one of those things that it's all about balance. And I think both of those two cons did actually do it very, very well in terms of, like, at no point did I feel like there was security theater. Mm-hmm. I felt like there was security decisions that actually kept people safe. Mm-hmm. Whereas, again, to go back to Cincinnati Comic Con, like, they made me dump out a bottle of water.
Yeah.
despite the fact that their own rules said that I was allowed to bring that in. Whereas on a different day, I walked in with your diet sun-kissed and didn't get called on it.
Yeah. The other things about accessibility, I'm not sure if I want to call one con out for this because a lot of cons do this. You just don't overfill rooms and do not have people line up in hallways.
Yeah.
It's a fire hazard. It's dangerous. It doesn't make any sort of sense for anyone who has any sort of mobility or accessibility issue because, like, there are times even when I'm not in a ball gown where I just physically can't stand in those lines and there's not really an alternative for me that's presented.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous. Like, if there's a fire alarm pulled in a situation like that, it's going to be incredibly dangerous for everyone.
So yeah, it's, again, I think overall, who do we want to give it to? I might give it to MCFC.
I think we can split an award again and give it to both.
I think that's fair, because I think they both had unique challenges, and I think they handled them spectacularly well.
Yes. Congratulations, you get our Connie.
Yay.
And the rest of you, as a reminder, don't overcrowd hallways. Do not put people in room where there's not enough seating for all of them. Room capacities exist for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And just generally try to think about how you can help the flow of traffic. I get the cons are crowded. Sorry, I know it's a rant of mine, but
No, it is. Like, again, we did have problems at last year's Ohio. Not Ohio, AnthroCon.
Yeah, with room overcrowding, which is even more dangerous when people are in fursuits.
Yep. Like, if a fire had started, there was one particular event that I think was a lot more popular than they anticipated. And if there had been a fire started in that room, a lot of people would have died.
I don't think it would necessarily have been a fire if it was just a fire alarm pulled and there was any sort of panic that could have caused trampling.
Yeah, I think you're also right there.
Which, again, I know AnthroCon is working very hard to try to get crowd control more under control this year. They've issued several announcements about that and what their plans are for that, and it is a volunteer-run con, so I do want to be a little bit more patient with them than I am a place like Fan Expo.
I agree. Like, again, it's going to be a case of I'm curious to see what they do this year in terms of handling that stuff. Are we going to that or not?
We're probably going to that.
We're probably going to that. So, I'm curious to see how they handle it. And again, if they improve, fantastic. That's the entire point. You make mistakes and you learn from them. Okay, next category, do you think?
I think so. That's pretty good for those types of stuff. There's paneling, there's cosplay, food options.
Shall we talk cosplay contests?
Okay, if you want to get on to even more controversy.
Yep.
Okay.
So cosplay contests suck.
Let's maybe back up and explain a little bit more. Okay. So a cosplay contest, as you can expect, is a contest where you wear some form of costume. They all have different rules. They vary from, like, the crowd votes and number of applause till you have to, like, go in and watch your construction be prejudged in front of a group of people, and they decide to some combination of the two. Some of them have a performance category where people go on stage and typically do anime dances, occasionally do skits on stage.
Yep, I believe Masquerade is a separate award we'll be giving out.
We're just going to... Part of the problem with this is Masquerade, I've noticed, doesn't actually... It can refer to anything I've said above. Sometimes it's just called Masquerade, regardless of what it's supposed to refer to.
True.
So we'll talk about performance and costume contests generally separately.
Yes.
So we'll do construction and we'll do performance, but I don't really want to use the word masquerade just because the word masquerade is confusing.
Fair and valid.
And I will say we've been to a lot of bad cosplay competitions.
We have. The main issue is that, one, getting a lot of people organized for a cosplay contest is actually quite difficult.
Yes. Two, they have rules posted on their website. Half the time the people who are running the contest have no idea what the rules on the website even are.
Yeah. Like at one point we were, early on in our cosplay doing stuff, we found a cosplay contest that basically said, for its lowest category, up to 70% of the stuff in it could be bought and modified. And we were like, okay, that makes sense to us, and that will work because, like, I'd built a prop, but I was wearing mostly normal clothes. You were in a ball gown that we'd modified. And we figured, okay, that would be about right. When we got to the contest, or when we got in front of the judges and we were talking to them, we realized somewhere along the way that they were very, very confused talking to us because they were like asking us how we'd made stuff, and we were talking about like design inspiration and
Yeah.
why we'd chosen pieces.
And I will say this has always been kind of a frustration given how I do cosplay, because I don't buy my cosplays out of a box. I also don't like make all elements of them. I find and thrift pieces, modify those pieces, and then come up with the design and concept and execute on it. And that's way different than buying a costume, and it is a skill set.
Yeah,
like I'm not going on a website and buying working on a Glinda and Jen Gerbent Elphaba costume right now, which I'm hoping to get done in the next month or so.
Yep.
And I'm not like just going online and clicking like Glenda and Elphaba costume and buying it. I'm thrifting pieces, I'm modifying them, I'm seeing what works, and that is a skill.
Yep.
It's just not a skill that's honored in pretty much any cosplay competition these days.
Because cosplay competitions increasingly are how neat is your sewing competitions.
It's kind of been taken over by this one group of people, at least for those competitions. And part of the problem with performance competitions is they're also just judged by the people who are judging the sewing competition 90% of the time, which means that they don't really know what they're looking at in terms of performance aspects most of the time.
But again, we'll talk about the performance things as a separate category.
So the other issue with it is, again, because you typically have to go for prejudging, it just takes a lot of time out of your day, which is part of why we don't really do it unless it tends to be at a smaller con that we know values creativity these days.
Yep. So like my favorite cosplay competition we've been to recently was the one at CosicCon like a couple of weeks ago, because like so much celebration of creativity, so many like different skills on display. Like there was a cool armor build, there was some cool dresses. They actually were handing out stuff for original characters, and the number of cosplay competitions that will actively dock you points for deviating from like the you have to turn up with like reference art for the character in question, and if you deviated from it in any way, they're going to dock you.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like I don't feel like we are at a point in history where cosplay competitions are really spurring on creativity, which is what they should be designed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, they're looking for clean, neat lines. Pretty much what always wins is just a costume that doesn't have anything wrong with it, so they can't dock you points, even if it's not a terribly interesting costume.
Yeah, we okay. At one cosplay competition we were at, we saw a Dipper from Gravity Falls, the female lead. And the reason that won was it was somebody who'd knitted their own jumper. And it was very impressive. It was a very well knitted jumper, but like it wasn't So you went to the bathroom like kind of right after that, and
that
I
was a different cosplay competition.
That was a different cosplay competition.
But these were combined events. So one of this was just an event of people were kind of when that won, people were confused, and then they explained why it won, and people were still confused because they were just like, okay, I don't want to knock that cosplayer. They did an absolutely amazing job. They definitely deserve that award. They did a bunch of techniques.
Yeah.
But it is something for which the judges were acting like outfits like that don't tend to win these competitions, which was interesting because everyone in the audience was like, something like that one again?
Yeah. Whereas, like...
And then at a different event later, a similar type of costume won. And I do want to be careful, honey, about like calling out specific cosplayers. That's really not fair.
That is fair.
But something similar to that one, we wanted to get out of the crowd early, so we were commenting about how, look, a really like neat but very just kind of not that memorable costume one again. And then I went to the bathroom.
And I heard about 5 groups of people going past in the corridor having basically the same conversation of, why did that win?
And then the other person in the group was like, that's pretty much what always happens.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think it's bad that those costumes are getting a chance to shine, but I do worry that it's just privileging really neat, clean sewing over any other skill or innovation.
Yeah.
And that does kind of bother me a little bit.
Yeah. Which again is one of the reasons that I very much enjoyed the CosicCon one, was because they were like... Part of the problem I think with cosplay awards generally is they tend to break down into novice, journeyman, master. And by the time you hit master level, like, you are just... It's a sewing competition.
Yeah.
And I would much rather they were handing out awards like coolest armor build, most flashy thing. Like, there's a bunch of awards you can give out that let you, like, give awards to the people who've done something incredibly cool and technical, while also shouting out the people who've just done something that looks awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And yeah, I feel like there needs to be a balance between those two things. So that's part of why we don't really compete anymore. Is there's a couple things I've made from scratch that have done okay, I would say, in competitions.
Yeah.
Like I'm proud of the candy skirt, and it has won some awards in some competitions. But
Yeah.
I don't. It's just not worth it to me to compete most of the time.
No.
Okay, so Kazikan I think is one that did it well.
Yes, Kazikon did it well.
Trying to think of others that I think did it well. I do want to emphasize that like we didn't compete in Kazikon's competition, nor did we win it, at least this year. So we're not like biased in favor of it. And last year we just got a fun judges award in it, which I was proud of.
Yeah.
Because again, the quality is way above what I just did. So I don't want to be like biased towards stuff we've won.
No. Like again, it mostly just comes down to frequently you look at something and go, why did that win?
Yeah. So Kazikon's good. Are there any other ones you want to shout out?
There's definitely been at least a couple of ones that like we actually thought did fairly well.
We don't also tend to go to these as much these days because they tend to be crowded.
Yep.
And we tend to like looking at cosplays more in the hallway than we do walking them across stage. Because as you can see, we're kind of tired of watching the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, it does get a little repetitive after a while. So yeah, I think Kozikon has to take it just because I can't think of another example that does it as well.
Mm-hmm. I like what they do. I like that they give out a lot of awards to pretty much everyone because they have a lot of judges awards that they give out, which is pretty cool. And they give stuff to a wide variety of types of cosplay. Stuff. Yeah.
Whereas again, I worry that like the obsession with getting cosplay perfect takes away from the creativity of it.
But there's also like a lot of subjectivity in this. We've seen judges give awards to their friends. That's happened a bunch.
Yep.
And sometimes, this bugs me both for costume and performance, if they don't get enough participants in a certain category, they just won't give out an award even though they're supposed to.
Yep.
Like, oh, we only got one person in this category. I guess we can't give out this award to this one person who worked really hard for this one category because they don't have anyone to compete with. And I'm just like,
just give them the award.
Give them the award. They clearly worked on it. They read the website rules and they're probably proud of their costume if they're competing. I don't think they're going to be offended. Give them the award. Yeah. Because some of them also like say that like 3 or more people have to enter for the award to even be eligible. I'm just like, why? Just give somebody an award. What does it hurt you? Yeah. Sorry, this is a pet peeve of mine.
No, it's a valid pet peeve.
Because we also have had cosplayers say stuff like, I hate the like everyone wins mentality. And I'm like, why? A bunch of people did really creative stuff. I can honestly say anytime we've watched a cosplay competition or even just a runway show, I've never seen I've never had the thought somebody shouldn't be there or like, oh, that person wasn't good enough to be on stage. Because they all are.
They are. Again, if you are brave enough to make a thing and get up on stage wearing it, you deserve to be on that stage.
You do, and you deserve an award just for doing that. Like, stop calling it a participation trophy because it's not. Like, participating in constructing a costume is a lot different than just like showing up day of.
Yeah. But yeah. So I think that's probably our Connie. Mm-hmm. Do we want to move on and talk about performance competitions?
Performance competitions have pretty much all the same problems we cited above.
Yep.
It's become kind of a technical dance competition more so than it has anything else because that's the only skill people know how to judge.
It's not even just that. It's mostly just a case of at a lot of these competitions, what you're going to see is a large number of people replicating anime dances. Yeah. Because they want to do that. Here's the thing. That's absolutely fine, apart from the fact that it gets a little repetitive.
Like it's quite boring.
If you've got 3 Hatsune Mikus doing broadly the same dances in the same competition and there's only like 10 slots, that gets a bit samey. Whereas you do some... we should probably explain how on earth this process actually works.
So, and they have various rules about whether or not you're allowed to use microphones, because some cons are very precious about giving people microphones.
Yeah, GalaxyCon, please stop being afraid of your audience. Let them have microphones.
But you either do a live performance, like singing or dancing, or you can, like, record, typically music, to be spliced to your length and either dance to it, or what we've done in the past is skit. One of the few people who do cosplay that do skit-based performances, because pretty much no one does.
Yeah. we see them occasionally, but they are substantially rarer than dance performances.
And I also think they should be judged separately from dance performances, just because they're different.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of the biggest problem we have with performance competitions is because the performances are so different. Like, it's just hard to judge them against each other a lot of the time because they're all doing different stuff.
Yeah, like the thing we've done on stage a few times is dressed as Titania and Oberon from Midsummer Night's Dream, doing a Shakespeare style but written by you like performance.
Yeah.
And we did pre-record the dialogue because, again, you have to for a lot of these competitions because they don't trust you with microphones.
Mm-hmm.
But that does mean that we can guarantee it's exactly the right length.
Yeah.
And then we are basically like miming along to it in costume. And it generally gets a pretty good reaction from the crowd.
It gets a good reaction from the crowd, but because it doesn't have any, because generally the stuff that tends to win this, I do want to say we might have pop culture choreography on this podcast a little bit later. She does a lot of performance-based stuff.
She does a lot of performance-based stuff.
I want to emphasize she's fantastic and absolutely deserves every award that she wins.
Yeah. It's, again, talking about the thing we had issue with earlier in cosplay and creativity. She is somebody who choreographs her own dance routines.
Yes.
Everything she does is a unique routine that she's created for that costume.
And if the judges can recognize that, which they can't always because there are a lot of times the same judges as they are for the construction contest, she generally tends to get an upper award, as she should. She choreographed her own dance routine and is an excellent dancer.
Yeah.
But if people can't recognize that, then it gets a little bit more hairy.
Yeah.
And with the stuff we do, most of it's about the writing and the cadence and the performance, but it doesn't contain any acrobatics or a lot of people dancing on stage, so it doesn't tend to score high with judges.
Yeah.
It does score high with the audience.
Yeah. Well, we usually get that particular performance may or may not end with me dipping you slightly and smooching you on stage, which that usually gets a pretty good woo.
Yeah. And people have come up to us after and told us how much they liked it, and occasionally told us it should have won also.
We have heard that, which again, I don't necessarily agree with.
We don't tend to judge ourselves in things like. Yeah. I have been mad when pop culture choreography has been snubbed on awards a few times, but I've not been mad when we've been snubbed on awards because again, we're not performers by nature, and it's more something we just kind of do for fun on occasion.
Yeah. So yeah, but I think I have a very obvious example.
I know which one you're gonna do, so just go for it.
Techo.
Yep.
So this wasn't last year's Techo. We couldn't make it to that because we had a conflict. But the year before, we did Techo, and the way they do their masquerade competition, their performance category, is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Insofar as they have about 50-ish entries,
which is a lot, I will say.
It is a lot. Especially, because I think you're limited to 3 minutes for multi-person things and 1.5, 2 minutes for individual.
Mm-hmm.
So, it does take a while to get through, but, they had a full-on rehearsal in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
You could talk to the lighting people and talk about what you wanted. You could make sure your audio was good. One of the people there was, performing with a trumpet, if memory serves, and they were having some audio issues at the start, and they took the time to get it right and make sure that they would sound good on stage for the actual show, and they sounded phenomenal. I cannot overstate how good a job they do of giving everybody that moment in the spotlight, sometimes literally if that's what they want, to perform and enjoy and actually play in their costumes.
Yeah.
There was one person who was clearly a bit nervous to be up there, fluffed their rehearsal a little bit, and because there were a bunch of us there waiting for our rehearsal slot, gave them a cheer, got them psyched up to go again. They did it again, and then they did it on the night, and they did fantastically. Yeah. And without that level of prep work, it would not be anywhere near as good.
Well, it's also everyone in the room had formed a bond, basically. We were chatting with the person in the line next to us who's part of an anime burlesque dance group. Mm-hmm. I think pop culture choreography might also be a part of now. We saw them in a couple cons before. I don't know if it's the same group. I also don't want to necessarily say that pop culture choreography is doing burlesque.
Again,
there's multiple anime dance groups in Ohio that
Yeah.
are all fantastic. You should check them all out. That's the short version of that.
Yeah.
But we talked to that person throughout the entire thing, and like they were really supportive of us, and they won an award as they deserved to win one. But they were like so nice, and it was just fun to just be in line with people and hang out.
Yeah.
It did take most of the day. That's the one kind of con.
That was the one downside, insofar as like this was about 3 hours in the morning and then 3 hours in the like afternoon, evening.
Yeah, I don't think we had time to do much else because this had to be one day because I had to go to an academic conference, which was lame the next day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we did like 2 panels and that was all we did on the Saturday of that con that year. But again, it was a fantastic experience, and I just kind of wish more people had turned up to it. Like, it didn't seem like it was a very popular event to watch.
well, it was very long, and I get that there's probably a lot of else going on. We're probably not competing, I think, this year. We're definitely going to Tech.
Yeah, we're going to TECA. We've submitted panels for TECA. We'll see if they get accepted.
Yeah, and I think that'll be our priority if they do get accepted. But I probably would watch.
Yep. Not get sideswiped by a Ferrari.
And then we'll see if we want to do it in a future year. Because it was a lot of fun.
It was.
I also do want to briefly call out steampunk cons for just having great costumes generally. Although Hall cosplay is a category, so we'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah.
Their cosplay contests tend to be they're still getting people to sign up for them, let's put it that way. I think because steampunk tends to be a genre that is more thrifted than it is make all your own stuff. They tend to have more loosey-goosey rules, which I honestly think is great, but
oh yeah,
I think we're just in a state of transition with their cosplay competitions.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement.
So we done ranting about cosplay competitions now?
I think so. Like, I don't hate them, but they're rarely my favorite thing at the con.
Yeah. Again, we tried a little bit with them. Also, can I briefly... I might bring this up at some point. So, I wear a lot of cosplay. The first question I always get asked is, did you make it? And whenever I say no, people don't know what to say after that.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of asking that question, I would encourage people to ask the questions of just like, oh, tell me about it. Or, oh, it's so cool. What is it? Like, those are better questions. And if somebody did make their costume, they will definitely say it at that point. But keep in mind, you can compliment somebody on their costume without necessarily complimenting their sewing skills. Because I design all my costumes. I don't make them from scratch, but I put them together.
Yeah.
And that still, in and of itself, is a skill.
Yeah.
Like, the elements of it wouldn't look good on their own, and I make them look good.
Yeah. I think that is a fair statement.
And that's, again, not against anyone or something like that. It's just, sometimes I just feel like some people have just told me to just lie and say that I've made it because they weren't sure what to say at that point. And I'm like, what do you want me to do? Sometimes on very rare occasions, I do say that, but it's mostly just because I want to get out of the interaction quicker.
Or like the Persephone dress.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't make it from scratch, but we did like add the flowers to it. We did some modifications to it. So whenever people ask if we made it, like,
it's just easier to say yes because we modified it. I feel like significantly to say that we've made it.
Yeah. Like, compared to the dress that arrived, in the mail, it's significantly different than it was.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll start saying that I've made it because I've like put stuff together enough that it probably qualifies in someone's book as like making it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, this is the thing, is if you don't buy your costume out of a box, but you also don't make it from scratch, it doesn't actually have an easy answer most of the time. Anywho. You want to talk about whole cosplay? Because that's, I think, also on the cosplay list.
Yeah, I would say whole cosplay is the next thing. So just whole cosplay is kind of our favorite way to experience cosplay, which is just you see somebody in the hallway, they're in a cool costume, like maybe you stop and say hi, maybe you compliment them, maybe you ask for a picture, all of those kind of things. Like, we've both done that with cool costumes and had that done to us a bunch.
Yeah.
Because people like our costumes. And
yeah.
that's honestly our favorite part about cosplaying, is just those moments of, I think you look really cool, can I get a picture with you?
Mm-hmm. Which is, again, our favorite parts of cosplay generally. And yeah, it's just fun to see. So how we're defining whole cosplay is basically just cosplay we see in the hallways.
Yep. Which,
obviously, the venue can't control who's going to show up in cosplay.
Nope.
But certain cons do tend to attract good cosplay. So who do you want to highlight?
I'm tempted to say, what was the other steampunk convention we went to?
Key City Steampunk?
Key City Steampunk had a lot of really good, like, hallway cosplay, which, again, part of that is just the nature of steampunk is because a lot of those people will have like created a persona and they've been working on the outfit that that person wears for years. You do just see a lot of really cool stuff.
And if you want to see some of the most amazing sewing and concept designs you've ever seen, I highly recommend you check out Madame Askew and the Grand Arbiter.
Yep.
Their costumes are the most amazing thing that I've ever like. And I want to emphasize everyone's costumes are of course good, but she is just her design and her aesthetic and her eye. Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Yeah. Yeah, there is some fabulous stuff there.
Yeah. And steampunk tends to be filled with that type of creativity, so you're going to get a lot of great costumes there.
Yeah. Whereas if you're going to a board game con, basically nobody's going to be in costume.
Yeah. I'm still in costume, but that's just because it's Thursday.
Yeah. Even you go a little lower key at board game cons just because you know you need to like get in and out of chairs.
And like maneuver around tables and that stuff.
Yeah.
So other than steampunk cons, any other ones you want to highlight for really good cosplay?
Really good hall cosplay. I'm trying to think.
Bigger cons tend to have a little bit of an advantage here because there's more people, but generally a smaller percent. Honestly, Techo also had a lot of amazing cosplay the year we were there.
It did. I'm certainly not going to disagree with that as a statement. Again, I feel like I've got to give this one to Key City.
Let's try to think of more cons first. Or are you just distracted because we're actually doing technical driving? Right
now? It's a little technical driving. So if you want to talk for a minute while we're fine for the record. We'll just go through some roadworks and there's a truck right next to us.
So anime cons tend to have the highest percentage of people who are dressed up, I would say relative, although steampunk pretty much everyone's dressed up. So those tend to be the highest percentage of cons that generally tend to have people who are like dressed up and just kind of going around in costume and stuff like that. All of them are pretty good again on vibes and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And again, like, the thing we do love about cosplay is the wholesomeness. It like sometimes it's just a case of you see somebody dressed as a character. Like again, Fan Expo 2 years, first year we were there, I think. I happened to bump into a guy wearing a suit of grey knight armor that he made himself, and like I got a picture with him because it was a really cool armor build. And I actually saw him again at a later con, and he remembered me, and we got another picture because he'd updated the armor build since then.
Obviously, furry cons have people in fursuits. That's the main cosplay there.
Yep.
Which they do look really cool. Like, it is worth just going around and looking at people's really cool fursuits.
Yeah. Some of which are terrifyingly expensive.
And a con we're going to be going to in a few weeks, I will say, has some very interesting cosplay. That's Colossal Con. Because it's at a water park, there's a lot of bikinis and fun, like, very summery cosplay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you just want to give it to Key City?
I think I'm going to give this to Key City, but, like, again, hallway cosplay is just one of those things that if your con has the right vibes and you've got a lot of good hallway cosplay, it's just a really fun, sweet thing to see.
So, do you want to talk about stuff at cons now? Vendors Hall?
Yep, might as well. So, vendors halls are something that, generally speaking, the big corporate cons are going to have an advantage at. Their vendors halls are going to be bigger, they're going to have a lot more variety. They are going to have like stuff you're not necessarily going to be able to find at other places. However, smaller cons often have often have the advantage of artisanal.
Yeah. And I will apologize a little bit for both this category and the last category. Part of the problem with costumes, hall costumes, and vendors hall stuff is just those are things where I think our minds run together a little bit on what was at what con more so, because they tend to have a lot of the same stuff in similar costumes. So I will say we might be privileging steampunk a little bit here just because they do tend to be a little bit more stick-outy in terms of the stuff they have. But that said, steampunk vendors halls are amazing.
Yeah, a lot of handmade stuff, a lot of just like cool knickknacks and just like really creative things. Whereas if you are looking to get like actual stuff from Japan and you're at the vendors hall of a big anime con like Fan Expo, you're going to be able to find a lot of cool imported stuff. Now and again, for the people who like that kind of official merch, bigger cons are going to be better for you. The one major disadvantage the bigger cons have is that if you go to 3 big cons, you're going to see a lot of the same stuff across all 3 of them. Whereas if you go to like 3 small cons that are like an anime con, a steampunk con, and a sci-fi con, you're just going to see different things in each vendor's hall. You're going to see a lot less overall, but they will at least all be unique.
And we're kind of lumping Vendors Hall and Artist Alley into one category because we're just kind of at the place where most cons have kind of just thrown them together at this point.
Yep.
The thinking is that Vendors Halls tend to be bigger venues who might import stuff, whereas Artist Alleys tend to be smaller and local artists who make all their own stuff. At this point in time, they just kind of tend to be pretty intermixed in terms of what's in what spot.
Yeah, they're usually pretty good about making sure the Artist Alley is all, like artisanal stuff, but there are plenty of people who make their own things who get into, quote-unquote, the main vendors hall.
And also, with a lot of these spaces, they're technically separate insofar as they're next to each other in the same room, but, like, there's no clear delineation between them, so we kind of just tend to view them all as one thing.
Yeah, like, again, at something like Fan Expo, it's all in one giant room.
Yeah.
Same goes for GalaxyCon.
At a smaller con like Bourbon City Steampunk or Key City Steampunk, I don't even think there's a distinction. There's just vendors, some of which are artisanal.
Yeah.
So that's why it's all lumped into one category. Yeah. I will say CausyCon this year, which I think we talked about, did a really good job with their plush game, which a lot of handmade plush, which is, I get not everyone's cup of tea, but I'm into it, so.
Yep, that's fair. What I do actually want to shout out is Origins, which, if you are into board games, this is a vendor's hall that is very, very on theme. Like, if there is a board game, you can probably buy it at Origins. Ranging from like the smaller stuff that's independently made to the big stuff that's like available at every store. Like, there is a pretty good chance there's somebody selling some part of it at Origins because they use up a lot of space for that vendor's hall, and they're frequently like doing demos and showing off what they have, and yeah. So, what do we think is the best vendor's hall?
I don't really know. Look, it's going to depend on what you want. That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
I might give it to Key City again just because we bought the butterfly mask. Like, vendors halls I think we've bought the most stuff at are Key City. We bought a couple stuff there. We definitely bought a bunch of stuff at CausyCon this year.
Yep.
Generally at bigger venues hall, we might buy a plush at most. So I think those are the two that we've actually like bought stuff at. And also one that we haven't talked about yet is Starbase Indie. It's a very small vendors hall, but it is all artisanal.
Yeah. And
we buy stuff from them every year, so I might have to give it to them.
Starbase Indie does have a good vendors hall.
We do consistently buy from their vendors hall. Yeah. And like the headpiece for my Persephone outfit we got there, and I wear that like constantly.
Yeah, you wear that a lot, so yeah. Yeah, I think that's a valid choice. But again, a lot of it, as we said, does come down to what you want.
Yes.
But for us personally, yeah, I think that's a good choice. So good job, Starbase Indie, kind of coming in and pivoting it to the post at the last second when we remembered you.
Congratulations, you now have a Connie. It's clearly an award you should put on your website.
I mean, that con is small enough they actually might.
They're not till November, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so probably time to talk about paneling, finally.
Yep. So paneling is something that is incredibly variable because...
So there are a couple subcategories here about types of panels, but cool. I think for paneling, we're just going to talk about paneling overall.
Yeah.
Like, how is the programming, and is the programming important? For us, I would say sufficient for the size of the con.
Yes. Like, again, if you've got 5 panels, but they're the most amazing panels ever, that doesn't help if you've got 20,000 guests.
Yes. And I will say this is something for which some people like go to cons and don't do any of their like programming. Like a decent chunk of people don't. I will admit I don't really understand those people.
Yeah, I've actively heard somebody utter the phrase like, there wasn't enough to do in the vendors hall, so I had to turn to the programming instead to fill my time. And I'm like, that's aggressively backwards from our point of view. Like, the vendors hall is the place we go to kill half an hour when we've got a break between panels.
And I know some people like cons just to hang out with their friends, which is valid, but cons for us, I tend to just kind of be a structured activity person.
Yeah, so am I for the most part. Like, I'm a little more loosey-goosey than you, but like, not by much. Like, if I was on going on my own to these cons, I'd still also mostly be going to panels.
So again, I do want to emphasize with panels, like obviously what we're judging here is like how the paneling content worked. Did they have a lot of varied content? As we've said before, like inevitably at some cons there's going to be two panels at the same time that we both want to go to. Like that's just unavoidable.
Yeah.
And there's also going to be some time periods where there's panels on, but none of them appeal to us specifically.
Yeah.
And cons can't possibly cater their panels to us specifically, so we don't expect them to like do that.
Yeah, it's mostly just if there are two fairly similar things, you don't necessarily want them facing off against each other.
Yeah, so if you have two game show panels, you don't necessarily want those at the same time. Or if you have two panels on like how to do cosplay makeup, you don't want those at the same time.
Yeah, because there's a decent chance that somebody who goes to one might also want to go to the other.
Yeah. So that's something you can make a mistake in paneling, but if there's nothing on it, just like an hour block, because those particular things don't appeal to us. Like, I'm not a fan of people like acting as characters from an anime and then the audience asking them questions as though they're characters from that anime. That's just not a type of panel that I enjoy.
Yeah.
But some people do.
Some people do. And again, those are panels I tend to find do work really well if you've actually got like the voice actors.
Yeah.
Or something like that, because they tend to know the characters very well. But even if it's just somebody who's a super fan in cosplay, like it can be really fun. Mm. It's just not our thing necessarily.
So, bigger mistakes we've had, particularly one thing that's interesting about panels is they kind of, as con sizes increases, you need to have more panels. But there's also like, I think, a cutoff point where just a decent chunk of people who attend cons at the bigger numbers just aren't there for the panels, so it doesn't matter quite as much. Like, at a con with 5,000 people, I would say you probably need to have about 5 or 6 things going on at once in terms of panels, depending on like size of rooms and stuff like that. At a con of 20,000 people, you probably need maybe like 3 times that, but not. Again, it depends on how big it is. Because the thing is, at bigger cons, not everyone goes to panels. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like again, at something like AnthroCon, it's very clear that for the most part, the panels aren't the main draw for people. Like they have relatively little paneling, but those panel rooms are rarely completely full. Like the only time we saw a panel room completely full was kind of right after the vendors all threw out.
Same with Fan Expo and GalaxyCon, or GalaxyCon side offshoot Animate. They tend to have a lot of programming, which I actually do really like, but the rooms rarely fill. Even the voice or the panels that are Q&As with like your celebrities typically don't fill.
Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, I'm tempted to give this one to GalaxyCon just because it does have a lot of programming.
Galaxy has a ton of programming.
And it is usually fairly varied. The main issue I have with GalaxyCon is I do feel like they kind of screw over their panelists insofar as at most conventions, if you are paneling, you will get
some sort of reimbursement. How much varies a lot between con and con.
Yeah, so
in terms of a free badge.
Yeah, so you and I did a panel. We did a panel singular at Starbase Indy,
and we got 2 free badges for the entire weekend for doing 1 panel.
Yeah.
Which is insanely good.
Yeah, like thank you for that. That was very nice.
Again, most are not that generous, and I think there is probably a middle ground. But at Galaxy, you get 1 badge for 1 day for 1 person for each panel you do.
Yeah.
Which is, for us to attend all 3 days, we would have to do 6 panels.
Yeah.
And also have GalaxyCon not all schedule them on Friday because you can't choose when you schedule your panels. Oh, there's goslings. We're in goose spotting season, so.
Yeah. I mean, we're always in goose spotting season, but again, we're in gosling season now, which is something that there were just some sort of in a small park that was kind of by the road as we were driving past, and I sort of had to aggressively point them out. But yes, as we were saying, it's one of those things that I think there's a healthy balance, and I do think GalaxyCon leans a bit on the stingy side. Whereas, like, I'm certainly not complaining about Starbase Indy's being as generous as they are, but wow. So,
another one I would want to shout out, I don't think we have enough information because we only attended TechO for 1 day, but it did look like they had a lot on. And they were bragging about it at Sengawa Project, which is the same people about like how much stuff they have on.
Yeah,
so.
Like we have submitted panels if we don't get in because like they already had that, lots and lots of other submissions, we're okay with that.
Yeah.
Like, we had a couple of ideas that we thought were pretty fun and cute. We will see if they get accepted.
And if they don't, it's okay. Because again, you don't know what part of the thing with submitting panels is you don't know what anyone else is submitting.
Yeah.
And somebody might have the same idea as you and submitted it earlier, or that might be somebody that they've worked with before who they know is reliable and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think both GalaxyCon and TechCon have great amounts of programming. I also want to shout out free cons generally, because free cons, MCFC I would honestly shout out a lot for a smaller con that has a ton of programming for a small con.
This is true. Especially given that the one thing I've noticed about furry cons is that they're, certainly in our area, there's a group that go to a lot of furry cons and do a lot of programming at them.
Yep.
And I do feel like without this particular group, they would be struggling to have enough programming.
Well, I think there are other versions of that group around the country, because I've seen similar like names pop up whenever I've searched further out for like free cons in the South or the Midwest, or in the Midwest, like different parts. So I don't know entirely. Also, Bourbon City Steampunk Con had amazing programming this year, I thought.
This is true. They had a lot of programming. It was varied. There was a bunch of it. Like that was good. They did do a good job. So yeah.
Do we have a winner?
For sheer quantity, I'm going to have to give it to GalaxyCon. But
Galaxy's the one I feel like I can assess the most in terms of big cons that have a lot on right now. I'm hoping TechCon will have amazing levels of programming like they promised to this year.
Yeah.
In which case they might swing in and get the Connie next year if we do this again. Or in 6 months when, like, we also can't get away for a weekend. So now we'll go into like specific types of sub-panels. I'm sure this is incredibly exciting to anyone who's listening.
Yep.
So I started with just lecture-based panels.
Yeah. So lecture-based panels are exactly what they sound like. It's somebody has prepared some kind of presentation and they're going to talk to the audience about it.
And obviously when we're talking about panels, that's somewhat going to just depend on the specific person who's doing the panel.
Yep. Like it is. And we don't want to like call out individuals on this.
So we'll just kind of talk vaguely about places we thought had good lecture panels.
Yeah. Starbase Indie.
Yes.
Has a very good lecture panels.
It does. They're all PhDs.
Not all, but they do. They definitely get some kind of education funding.
Yeah, I think it's the Natural Humanities Endowment or something. Like basically, it's a bunch of people from different disciplines in a room talking. So. Yeah. And the thing about PhDs is we know how to give a lecture because it's what we do.
Yep.
Like that's my job.
Yep.
It's a skill set that I have, and it's a skill set that anyone who's a PhD who does academic work just has.
Yeah. You're
incredibly practiced at it, so.
Yeah, like the bioethics in Star Trek panel that we did there, I think went very well. Mm-hmm. Small audience, but very engaged audience. And again, like, it says something that basically the second we mentioned, like, who you are and what your knowledge base is, they were just like, I want that.
Yeah. They really try to have educational components to their panels.
Yeah, which is really nice to see. So those were very, very good. I'm trying to think what else.
And we don't tend to go to as many lecture panels these days because my attention span is short. And also, like, never mind. Me being an academic snob.
Again, we've certainly done some that are pretty fun, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we probably are going to have to give that one to Starbase Indie.
I think so. It's the best like lecture panel one because a lot of other ones just tend to be focused on like market or not. They tend to be focused on like anime or specific things in anime. There's a couple of history of fan fiction ones that are at multiple anime cons that I liked a lot because it is pretty good about being in depth about the history of fanfic and things like that.
Yep. And again, like we do also have friends who do lecture panels, and we are not calling out like any individual panels. Mm-hmm. It's mostly just like which con do we think has the best.
And we also do lecture panels.
Yeah.
So. And I think if you want to have good lecture panels, Starbase Indie is definitely a way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Next category?
Game show panels.
Game show panels. So, we like game shows a lot.
We do.
And game show panels at cons have been a staple for a long, long time.
They have.
They are frequently replicating classic game shows. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they have, like, got bored of replicating classic game shows and decided to make their own. That happens sometimes. Mm-hmm. But, it's stuff like, we're going to do Jeopardy, but the questions are going to be themed around whatever the con's about. Like, so anime Jeopardy, sci-fi Jeopardy, etc., etc., etc. Sometimes they go a little bit deeper into the weeds with like game shows from the 80s that ran for like one season that you've never heard of.
It's done by game show nerds a lot of the time, and some of these people, like Grego, who I'm sure we're going to shout out,
Yep.
because I just did, make their own software for these types of programs.
Yeah, like Grego's stuff is really, really good.
So the two main ones that we love, and I do want to emphasize, like game show panels in particular, I've never been to like a terribly bad one.
No.
There are a couple that I might have tweaked a couple things about, but for the most part, I've always I love them. They're typically well run. They're done by people who are passionate about game shows.
Yeah. Usually my only criticism is that I feel like sometimes they get a little too in the weeds on the questions, especially at anime cons. Like, if they decide the category is one particular anime show and like
no one's seen it,
it's a little bit of a problem. But like, that's a pretty mild complaint.
It is, and it's also like with real game shows, you can like do them on a test audience to see if they're too hard. With like game shows you're doing at cons, you often don't have a test audience. So.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, we've also seen like some of them where they'll do things like Family Feud, where they do actually have to do a survey of 100 people to make that work.
Yeah. I do want to emphasize there's a couple different groups that do these. So one's called the Federation. They do mostly like Star Trek based stuff.
A lot of sci-fi, a lot of that kind of stuff, yeah.
And Grego's game shows, he I think has some other people who also use his software, but he builds all his own software and goes to cons and does everything from very like well-known game shows to less
to weird, as I said, weird niche stuff that ran for like one season in the 80s.
But you'll also see these at other cons as well. Like GalaxyCon does their own version of like Family Feud and stuff like that.
To be fair, the GalaxyCon Family Feud thing, like, they clearly, with GalaxyCon, because they don't trust their audience, with that one it was supposed to be like wrestlers versus cosplayers, I think it was, but then like one group.
I think somebody had like an emergency or something like that, which happened, so they just improvised with audience members coming up there.
And it was more fun.
Yeah.
Because it's just kind of more fun to watch members of the audience than it is to watch the celebrities, which... That's a personal choice. Some people really probably enjoy watching the celebrities and were disappointed they weren't there, but...
people seem to be having fun.
Yeah.
So, I might give this one to SubasaCon, because it has Grego. Grego's doing pretty much all of his shows. Like, you can spend the whole weekend with him if you want, which we have before.
We pretty much did.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, SubasaCon was really good. And he wasn't the only one running game shows there.
No.
Like, that one particular room, I think, had game shows basically constantly all weekend.
Yeah.
And I very much appreciated that.
I
that
did
was
too.
Fun.
And the nice thing about Grego is, again, if you are a game show fan, which game shows have always been kind of a comfort food because they're what I used to watch as a child when I was like sick or at home because they were what was on. I don't know. Like, they're not terribly complex, but they're fun. I like games. They're silly, and I really like playing them at a con, in part because like I could never go on a show like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or like Deal or No Deal or anything that involved like actual money or actual stakes. That would make me miserable. But playing them at a con where the stakes are like a stuffed animal or $20 is fun.
Yeah.
Like, they had a Deal or No Deal panel at SubasaCon where everyone just played till the end because it was fun, because the most you could win was like $50. So everyone just played till the end.
Which did include one person getting a penny.
Yeah, it was great.
It was funny. Like, they played it, really, really well. It was very, very funny.
Yeah, and Deal or No Deal is basically just luck anyway.
Yeah.
I still don't understand why that one ever caught on. It's such a boring concept.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think SubasaCon taking the game show con panel award, is probably valid.
Yeah, and Grego, again, is not the only person who does game shows well, but I will say if I know Grego's at a con, I'm probably going to all of his panels.
Yeah. Yeah, unless there's a severe conflict.
Conflict.
Oh, dear. Okay, how are we doing?
Fine. Like, do you want this to not be a 3-hour episode?
No, it's going to be a 3-hour episode, I think.
Okay.
Because I feel like we've still got stuff to talk about, and we're still an hour from home. So.
Cool. Thanks to the people who are listening to this.
I don't understand you.
This podcast is brought to you by our sponsor, Wegmans. Wegmans, the grocery store we went to today.
Honey.
What?
Unless they're actually giving us money, please don't do that.
They did give us cannolis today, though.
Well, they did. We paid for them.
I know.
It's just you really like their like mini cannolis. They'd run out, so I asked the people behind the bakery section, if they were making any more today, and they basically said, "How many do you want?" I was like, "Yeah," and they said, "Yeah, we can do that for you. Give us like 15 minutes."
Well, like all the other sponsorships I thought of off the top of my head were like more offensive than that. So
Yeah, that's fair.
it's brought to you by Muskingum Graduation. The reason why we're not at a con this weekend, thanks Muskingum Graduation. Should I have said the name of our university?
We typically don't, but it's fine. Okay. Next category.
Oh yeah, we're on types of comedy. So I have comedy panels and audience participation panels as separate categories, just to clarify.
Yeah. So comedy panels are exactly what they sound like. It's people trying to make you laugh. Now, this can take a number of forms. It could be somebody doing stand-up.
Mm-hmm.
We frequently see people doing, whose line is it anyway, or legally distinct whose line is it anyway,
Mm-hmm.
where they're doing a bunch of like improv games with a bunch of people up on stage. And sometimes it's just, we've seen variations of the old like convention horror stories panel where it's people basically just, here's a bunch of weird stuff that's happened at conventions in the past. That's usually pretty funny. Because again, they're telling you the funny stories, not the horrifying stories.
Should we call it Connie?
No.
Damn it.
So, generally speaking, comedy is very, very subjective.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main issue with those kind of panels is if you vibe with the performer, if you vibe with what they're doing, you're going to have a good time.
Yep.
If you don't, you're going to be trying to sneak out the back awkwardly because it just doesn't work for you.
And I will say it's hard. Like, you've got to play to a crowd. The crowd has to be there. As somebody who teaches, I know that there are just days where you don't have a classroom that's going to be on your side. And sometimes if you're a comedy performer, you just don't have an audience that's going to be on your side.
Yeah.
It happens. And it's hard. And we've seen it happen at cons, and I don't even necessarily think it's the performer's fault.
No. Again, sometimes one of the things that sometimes turns up is like comedy panels scheduled in the wrong time for the wrong size room. Like, if you're in a room that can seat 500 and there's 30 people there, it doesn't matter how good the comedy is, nobody's laughing because it's awkward.
And you do need to have enough people in the room for it to like work. If only 5 people come to your comedy panel, it's probably not going to be that good no matter how good of a comedian you are.
Yeah.
And like, I think the most experienced comedians and some of the people we've seen could probably pull those situations off. And I have seen plenty of comedians at cons save moments like that, but it's hard. And I do want to acknowledge that. Like, there's a lot of reasons comedy can fail at cons that are not the fault of the people performing the comedy.
I would agree. So we've probably got a couple of fairly obvious shout-outs for this one, but I want to begin with a slightly more off-the-cuff one. What was the con we went to at New Year's?
Dokido, which I was also going to shout out for audience participation panels, but I do agree that their headliners at that con did some fantastic comedy panels.
They did. So is it Doki Doki Con or Doki Do Con?
I think it's Doki Doki. As you can tell, our Japanese pronunciations are not great.
They're awful.
So yeah. They also do a summer con that we've not been able to go to because it's typically crossed with like 5 other cons in our area.
Yeah. So, but a couple of years ago, they did Doki Winterfest.
Yes.
Which was over New Year's.
Which I think the main thing was to have a con over New Year's because New Year's fell on a Sunday, so you could do like a late night. I still don't know why they call like cosplay dances raves. They're not raves in any traditional sense, but whatever. Rave into New Year's Eve, which we did not go to because we're like want to go to bed at 10 type of people.
Yep.
But we did go to Doki Do because we were looking for something to do over New Year's. So.
Yeah. And that was a lot of fun. And again, their headline was Maisie Lynn. What the heck is her surname?
You follow her on Instagram.
Yeah, I know, and I've completely forgotten what her last name is, but she was absolutely fantastic.
And the guy from Haikyuu was also there.
Yep.
Sorry, we're not bad with it. Both of them had amazing chemistry with each other.
Yeah.
Because she's like a gothic princess and he's like a giant golden retriever.
Yep. That's kind of their vibe. And they played off each other very, very well.
Yeah.
She had an extended sort of comedy bit about, like D&D classes and their sexuality, and we're going to leave the details there because this is a safe for work podcast. But like it was very fun. It was very silly. It was quite loud.
It's like one of those things where I actually really do like celebrity, quote unquote, experiences at smaller cons because they're mostly just people who want to go to the con and hang out with people, and that's a lot more fun for me than
Somebody who's there because their
to make
agents told them
money
they needs to
and to
be.
sign autographs.
Yeah.
And like obviously these are like celebrities that are nowhere near as famous as like other people as they would admit, but they do great work. They're artists that deserve to be respected, and they're with an audience that's happy to have them there, and they're happy to be there, and that's a pretty great thing to see.
Yeah. Like I got to talk to her about interesting contact lenses because she's one of those people who, like me, likes interesting contact lenses. Kind of as a fashion statement. So that was a lot of fun, and again, that was good comedy. Comedy. Don't even start with that.
So the other group we shout out all the time is the furry acting comedy troupe that tends to go around to most of the furry cons in our area.
Yep.
They are also fantastic. I've never seen a room that they could not win over.
Yep. That's Alkali, Boozy Badger, Iggy Dinosaur,
Sigma Wolf,
Citrine. We are definitely missing a bunch of people.
Yeah.
It's a fairly large group.
And it is a bit of a rotating group depending on who can go to what con.
Yeah. But like generally speaking, if they are doing panels at your local furry con, go watch them.
Yeah.
You're going to laugh.
Like it'll convert you to being a furry. That's what happened to us, really.
Again, neither of us has an official fursona.
It's like I don't want one fursona. I am large and contain multitudes. I want to wear different themed animal costumes each day.
That's fair and valid.
And just be a shapeshifter. I don't know. We can talk about fursonas later.
I keep telling you should just make your fursona in a glow sheet. But so yeah, they do a really, really fantastic job, and like there's a reason why when we're at a furry con we tend to go to most of their panels.
Yeah.
It's because most of what they do is hilarious. Though it does concern me that like Boozy now knows to shout me out in an audience at an MST3K panel and just be like, oh look, it's the British psychopath.
I was called a chaos cow at the last one, so
yeah, you were. That was great. But yeah. So again, they are also an absolutely phenomenal group, and if they're at a con we're going to go to a lot of those panels, and we're going to laugh a lot.
Yes. Do you have any other comedians you want to shout out?
I'm trying to think if we've been to I can't think of many others I specifically want to shout out.
There's definitely been other panels where I've laughed until my sides hurt.
Yeah, this is true. But again, I'm going to be honest, I feel like a lot of those panels fall more into the improv audio participation
We'll
category.
talk about that next.
Yeah.
So who do you want to give the Connie to?
I kind of got to give it to the that group of furries.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to the group of furries at the first Anthro Ohio, because let's be honest, that's what keeps us going back to FurCons, was that experience with them.
Yeah, I think that's fair and valid.
So congratulations, Anthro Ohio. If anyone's tracking these awards, I think you might have won 2 at this point, maybe.
Maybe. Like, we're not even tracking this.
No. But if anyone from any of these cons works there, wants me to 3D print them an award, I will do that.
We don't have a 3D printer.
No, but if anyone's listened this far into the podcast and is like this excited about getting awards, like I will find a way to get them an award.
Okay.
So next we have audience participation panels. So this tends to take a variety of forms. It can be comedy-based improv panels where audiences can participate.
Yep.
And it can also just be like shout-out participation. Like there's a wide variety of audience participation panels. Yeah, like, Anime Court's a big one. I like that.
Anime Court's great. Game shows are, again, like, they're their own separate thing, but like they will frequently be pulling members of the audience to be the participants on the game shows.
Cosplay chess I would also put in this category. That's only at a couple cons, but it exists.
It does. Cosplay chess is exactly what it sounds like. You mark out a giant chessboard on the ground, and everybody's in cosplay, and 2 people are playing chess directing you.
And yeah, they're not really trying to win so much as they are to move all of the pieces so they can all get their moments to shine.
Yeah. Oh, God, that Rick Astley.
Yep.
Yeah, we were at... Where was it? This was Colossal a couple of years ago, doing cosplay chess, and Rick Astley kept pulling a gun on people. So again, like if you've ever played battle chess, which is just it's normal chess, except they put a lot of work into like the animations for when one piece takes another. It's basically that, but in real life.
Yep.
So you when you get taken or when you take somebody else, put on a bit of a show. Make it appropriate and in theme.
It was really intense when I was looking at a con in, I think, North Carolina, that like has you like you have to basically audition for it and like talk about what your finishing moves would be and how you would do it in character, which seems very intense.
That does seem intense. Could be fun, but definitely intense.
So cons with great audience participation panels. There are actually quite a few. So
There's quite a lot.
Dokido, again, I want to shout out again. Very small con over New Year's, but a lot of fun. Everyone knew each other by the end of it. It was just one giant party.
Yeah.
They completely trusted everyone who went there. Sometimes the panelists didn't show up and we were just in rooms by ourselves asking each other trivia questions.
Yeah, there was a trivia panel where the panelists didn't turn up and we just started asking each other questions. The con staff realized the panelist hadn't turned up, came in, found us doing that. We were just like, okay, well, there's nothing in this room until this time, so have fun. That was a great way to handle that. Good job, convention. But, and again, you find some wonderful stuff. I'm tempted to give this one to Sangawa Project again. And you know
Project,
why.
That was just that one panel.
Yeah, but it was really good.
It was a really good panel of...
It was Defend Your Waifu.
Yeah.
And the principle of this panel is fairly simple. You have to, argue why your personal anime waifu is the best waifu. Mm-hmm. There was one slight snag with the way they designed this panel. All the waifus were chosen randomly.
Yep.
Which meant that there was a very good chance you could be defending a character you either don't like or have never seen.
Which I will admit, I'm a philosophy professor. I can debate anything. Like, you give me a microphone and a picture and I can do interesting stuff.
And I have this accent.
So yeah, we faced off against each other in the final round, which I do think there were other people who were also very, very good. I want to emphasize that got to pair up with us, who I do think were...
They were really good. I think
they wanted to have a husband and wife face off against each other.
And we did. Part of the thing is you and I know exactly where each other's boundaries are, which meant that we could say a lot of stuff to each other that we could not say to random other people at cons. Like, a couple of people came up to us afterwards and was like, is your marriage okay? And we're like, no, it's fine.
It's fine. Like, we know where each other's sensitive spots are and where they're not. So.
Yeah, there are jokes about me you will not make because they are, past my limits. There are jokes about you I will not make because I know you're past your limits. But, other stuff that is funny, yeah, fine. No, go for it. Doesn't offend me in the slightest.
And we got the kiss at the end of that panel, too.
We did. Which, again, always gets a good woo out of the audience.
That one also had a really good, it was fanfic Mad Libs panel. It was a very fun audience participation panel.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Which was basically just, everybody submitted a bunch of Mad Libs words at the beginning of the panel, and then they sort of drew them at random throughout. So we ended up creating this insane story, which I think is online somewhere, but I can't remember what it's under. Because they did say that part of the rules of that panel is they had to publish it. So, just to AO3 for the record, but yeah. Do you have a con you'd rather give it to than that?
This is it really depends on the crowd you have for these types of panels. Anime Court I've seen done at a lot of different cons, and it's pretty much always a hoot. But it's not done consistently at any one con that I would say it's better there. It just kind of depends on what happens at these various panels.
Yeah, I think that's fair because again, Anime Court's one that takes a lot of audience suggestions, and if you get a good, funny suggestion from the audience, you can absolutely go for it. And we've seen the classic case of one person is playing Pikachu or another Pokemon, and as a result, their Anime Court argument is Pika, 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 Pika. I like the audience gets really into it when somebody does that. You and I have done that while reading fan fiction that's from Groot's point of view, so every line is I am Groot, and the audience was just yelling along of oh wow, that got intense fast and stuff like that. Those are just a lot of fun.
Anyway, as you can see, this is not very rehearsed. We did not go through and actively think about which cons are the best of all of these because we forget what cons we go to, which is part of why we keep this diary device.
Yeah, it's why we have created this journaling device that is nominally also a podcast.
Yes. So I'm going to get into the Sangawa project.
Yeah.
I do feel bad that we haven't cited as many board game cons or sci-fi cons so far.
This is true, but I think we will get onto those.
So those were the main panel categories. Do you have any other panel categories you want to do before we?
Not that I can think of. Like, again, you could make an argument of like cosplay things, but I would
We
argue
don't
those
tend to
fall
go
under.
to those.
Yeah,
So.
I'd argue they fall under lecture.
Yeah.
You do sometimes get crafting panels where you will actually like have the opportunity to make stuff, but again, we don't tend to do
Mostly because I'm in
those.
like fancy dresses and don't want to get glue on them.
Yep.
But they do have them at a lot of cons. And they just seem to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Though those frequently do charge you a little bit extra because like they have to pay for the materials, but you get to keep the thing at the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. No, I think that is all completely legitimate. Okay, next category.
Sorry, text from coworker.
Anything important?
University drama, but it's not anything that affects us. So.
Okay, that's fine. Well, we will discuss that when we're not recording ourselves.
Alright, so we've a few things I have left are con swag, first time con, food options, vibes, and then the various con categories.
Okay. Do you mind if I just do food options briefly?
Yeah, you can do that. I'll look at this message while you do that.
Cool. So, food options at cons, as we've mentioned before in this podcast, you can't eat at conventions. That's a thing related to your disability and your diet. It's a bit complicated, but short version, I'm the only one of us who ever eats at a con. And cons vary widely in availability of food. And it comes down to a number of things. One, some convention centers have on-site food and don't allow any external food. Mm-hmm. Some don't, but don't have like easy access where you can get food in. Some are in a position where they can just park 3 food trucks on the road outside and you just go outside, grab whatever you want and come back in, and that's great. You tend to find that a lot of convention centers are kind of a mix of the above. Like the place we went to in Dayton has its own food, but it's very limited. So when one of the cons we were at had some food trucks there, great. You know, they did not have a problem with that as external food. As opposed to somewhere like the convention center in Cincinnati, where Cincinnati Comic Convention was held, they were not allowing outside food or drink at all, and that's a bit of a problem. Like that kind of, even if I didn't bring food with me, being told I'm not allowed to and have to eat the stuff that's provided, especially if it's expensive, puts me right off, even if I would have done it anyway. So,
and it is worth noting that some venues, quote unquote, don't allow outside food, but don't actually care if you bring it in.
Yeah, like we've had a couple where they've had a sign up that says no outside food or drink, but because they don't check, you can turn up with, like again, your preferred caffeine method, which is Diet Sunkist, and you're absolutely fine. Nobody cares. So again, that's just a varied thing. I mean, I'm going to have to give this to the Columbus Convention Center just because it does have a lot of different options. It's got a food court which has a variety of stuff in it. It's got multiple different other places where you can get food, ranging from like sort of Subway sandwich stuff through to like slightly fancier stuff, and the hotels have like salmon bagels and stuff like that, and there's multiple restaurants. Like, it's got everything you could possibly want in that option, and it's close enough to downtown Columbus that if you want to walk out and get dinner somewhere else, that's also an option. But I do want to say, small cons that know their venue doesn't have food but find ways to provide it regardless, I love you for that. Even if that's just something as simple as getting 2 or 3 food trucks. Like, that's always great. So, yeah, Greater Columbus Convention Center, I'm afraid, is taking the food award, but that's mostly just for variety rather than overall quality. Not that it's bad quality, I do want to say it's decent, and it's going to be reliable, and you've got a lot of good options.
So we're probably not going to do closing ceremonies because half the time we don't stay for closing ceremonies. Yeah. It's mostly just
it's a wrap-up.
Yeah. You want to talk about con swag? I put that as a category just because it was fun.
Yeah, we can do con swag.
So con swag is the free stuff you get at cons.
Yep.
You can pay for extra stuff if you get VIP, but I define con swag as just stuff that's being given out at panels or just by people or just generally.
Yep. Cons
vary a lot in terms of the con swag. And the con swag is not that important a part of a con, but it is fun.
Yeah. So one of the things that we can really shout out board game cons for
Mm-hmm.
is most board game cons, if you're doing a kind of tabletop RPG that involves character sheets, as a general rule of thumb, afterwards they let you keep them.
Yep.
And that might seem like a very small thing to somebody who's not played a tabletop RPG, but I really like being able to keep those character sheets. I think it's very, very nice. It lets you feel like you've got a little memento. And again, it doesn't really cost the person that much, because again, it's costing them whatever it costs to print out one double-sided piece of paper. But it's a lovely memento, and I do really appreciate when like GMs let you do that.
Yeah. I will say GalaxyCon, I've gotten so much plush from GalaxyCon or the anime affiliate, because we go to their game show panels. They're typically fairly smallly attended for the amount of people there.
Yep.
And pretty much anyone who participates gets a plush prize that they just clearly have in just mass hooves in the back of their thing. So I've gotten a lot of plush prizes from them.
Yeah, a lot of the people who do like game shows a lot will frequently have a lot of prizes to give out, and they'll give out like small prizes to anybody who participates, and then bigger prizes for people who actually win. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I do very much appreciate. That is, you get a lot of cool swag that way.
Yeah, and it is fun to win something, even if it's like something silly like a small stuffed animal.
Yeah, it gives you the warm and fuzzies. In terms of like actual official merch from the cons, like we've had a few bits and bobs. Like we got a big carrier bag from Fan Expo last year that broke.
We got that like anime dice thing just because we went into the tabletop game room at Animate and they just handed us a dice set.
Yep. I think it was just one giant D20, but it was a cool D20.
I will say CausyCon gives away so much stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I might just give it to them just for sheer volume of amount of stuff they give away. They have a free bingo game where pretty much everyone in the room gets a prize. Yeah. They have ribbons and posters, and yeah, I'm probably just gonna give it to CausyCon just for the sheer amount of stuff.
That is fair and valid.
You okay?
Yeah. Just looking at the CDs we've got down there for no good reason.
And in terms of there's not really a worse here. I don't expect free stuff when I go to cons. It's nice to have it, but I'm not gonna call a con out for not having free stuff.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Now, if you're paying for an extra super duper VIP badge that's gonna, and they promise it's gonna come with free swag or cool swag, and it doesn't, that's a reason to call them out. But if you're like us and you're just buying the standard weekend pass ticket, the most we expect from the con is maybe a themed lanyard, and we don't even necessarily expect that. A lot of places don't do those, and we don't expect you to.
Right, first time con. This is a special award for recommendations for a con that would be good to somebody who didn't go to a con before.
Yes.
This is going to depend a little bit on what type of person you are, because some people are going to be fine just dropping into a 20,000 person con, not knowing what they're doing, which is what we did.
That's what we did. I don't necessarily think it was the best way to do it.
It probably was not, but it is a way, and it did clearly work for us.
Yep.
So,
we would typically recommend, I would say, a mid-size con be your first con, somewhere in the anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 person range. And the main reason for that is small enough that you will have the opportunity to get to know a couple of people, but not so small that if something gets a bit awkward, you're going to be trapped there with them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And again, it would obviously vary depending on what your interests are. If you're not into anime, probably... Well, I have trouble saying this because, again, the reason we go to cons doesn't actually have anything to do with what the cons are about. But
sci-fi is about the only one of the cons we go to that I'm actively interested in the specific thing, unless you count the board game cons.
Yeah.
We don't steampunk to a lesser extent.
Obviously, don't go to a thing that you actively hate, but I vary from neutral to kind of mild fondness to most of this stuff. So for us, the way I choose a con, as we talked about in our con tips episode, is by looking at the schedule and seeing if there's events that will appeal to me. Which I think is a good way to do it. You can also build it around celebrities, but I think that's a bit of a risk because celebrities do cancel. It's a little bit risky to do that.
Yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind is with celebrities, if you want to go see them, other people probably do too. So unless it's somebody very niche, if you wanted to go to Fan Expo as your first con to see David Tennant, you were not the only person there trying to do that.
And if you you probably paid about like, if you wanted to pay $200 to $300 to go see David Tennant, get an autograph and talk to him for 5 minutes, you could do that at Fan Expo.
Yeah.
Just be clear that that's what you're paying that money to do.
Yeah. Whereas we would rather spend that money going to like 4 other cons and just keeping our weekends very, very busy.
Yeah. So based on people who go to cons the way we do, what would be some good recommendations for first-time cons? I would definitely say MCFC for FurryCon.
MCFC for furry cons. A Catacon
Yes.
board games.
A Catacon for board games.
That was a fabulously run board game convention. You had a lot of options, and unlike something like Origins, like there were slots open for good games up until a Catacon started.
Mhm.
You did not need to worry about the scrum to get tickets for actual like events you wanted to go to.
For anime, I would honestly say it varies depending on where you're at. I would honestly say look for like a local anime con that's in your nearest biggest city. If you're in Pittsburgh, I would honestly recommend doing Sengawa Project, and if you like that, then try Techo.
Mm-hmm. There is a certain logic to that.
It's a smaller con, and it's run by the same people, and it'll give you an idea of how to do a con, and then Techo's in the summer, which is giant. So
yeah. I think all of those are pretty fair suggestions. Do we have it? See, for sci-fi cons, I would have said Marcon. Rest in peace, Marcon. Like, we don't go to many sci-fi conventions because there just aren't as many as I'd like there to be.
they're a little bit further out. There was Concoction we went to earlier, which I think would be perfectly fine if you wanted to. If you were a sci-fi fan, I think you would have fun there. We haven't talked about it a lot yet, and I did like it. So.
This is true. I think saying Concoction as a like good starter sci-fi con would be a valid shout.
And Starbase Indie is a indie convention over there, which I think with a sci-fi con, I don't really feel like I don't feel like you need to avoid the big runs just because there aren't any really large ones. Just pick one in your local area and go.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that.
Okay, so before we give out our final awards-ish, trying to time this right, vibes, which is going to be a tricky one.
Yeah, vibes basically just means, was the general atmosphere of the con something that was good?
Which I will say there's only been like 1 or 2 cons that had bad-ish vibes. Like 99% of the time they're amazing because everyone's excited to be there.
Yeah. Bad?
Cincinnati Comic-Con.
Yeah, and I was going to say, bad vibes at cons tend to be caused by something near the beginning of the weekend going wrong.
Yep.
So, in the case of Cincinnati Comic-Con, the vibes were just off, and I blame the security.
Yeah, no one liked going through that. It was a long line. It was hot because it was September.
It basically made the whole thing suck for the same reason that air travel sucks. Like, going through security like that just puts everybody in a bad mood.
Yeah, no one likes it. It's an atmosphere of distrust. Your body doesn't feel comfortable. You're waiting in a long line. Stuff might be taken from you and thrown out for BS reasons. Yeah, it's just...
R.I.P. my bottle of water.
That's really the only one that I could think had bad vibes. I think there was a little bit of stress, I would say, more so than bad vibes at Anthrocon last year, just due to difficulties with crowds.
Due to the registration issues.
Which, again, they are actively trying and doing their best, and again, volunteer run. So.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that was bad vibes. I just said people were a little bit stressed out.
I would say those vibes kind of cleared up by, like, I don't know, afternoon of Saturday.
Yeah.
Once, like, everybody was actually in and having fun. It was just that first day, I think, the process soured people a little. But I think I think the vibes on that one recovered. They did not recover at...
Well, like, the nice thing about that was, again, once they solved the problem or got through registering everyone... they were done, everyone got fun. Whereas at Cincinnati Comic-Con, you had to go through that detector anytime you wanted to get into the damn building. So it was just not great.
Like, people were actively leaving that building through fire exits just so they didn't have to go through through that nonsense on the way out.
Yeah. And even though we said a couple criticisms of Anthrocon, I do want to emphasize it's borderline just because of how big it is. I do know that they're trying to fix those problems, and I do think they're a con with the heart in the right place that just is growing at a level that they're still learning about.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Whereas Cincinnati Comic-Con is just...
Those were just bad decisions.
Yeah, just pick a different venue. You have the money to do that. Pick a venue that does not force you to do that.
Yeah. Which, again, by the sound of it, they have.
Yeah. So other than that, like, it's... So many cons have good vibes. Just the feeling you get walking around the convention, which is why we go to cons, I think, more so than any other reason.
Yep. Like, again, I get the con warm and fuzzies, like, usually after a panel goes particularly well, or we get, like, like, again, at the Sangal project after we did that Defend Your Wife panel, like I had the warm fuzzies for a while because it was a lot of fun. People liked it.
And I want to emphasize, it's not. I don't just get those when we have those like big moments on stage. I also get them when other people do.
Oh yeah, like again, we've seen like people have really great moments on stage that just make them so happy, and it just like it sets our mood for the next however long.
You just want to give this to cons generally because I really can't.
Yeah,
choose.
I think we just need to give this to just cons.
That's sappy.
Yeah.
Are you crying?
Not yet. It's fine.
Okay.
But yeah, like again, there's a reason why we go to as many as we do. That reason is that you're mildly crazy.
Yeah, I did the spreadsheet for summer. Next week we might try to go to 3 cons. It's going to be interesting.
Please don't.
Our viewers now expect it, so.
I know. It's fine if I have to edit that. No, that's a lie.
You're not going to edit that. So now we're on to our individual con awards. Like we said, I think maybe at the beginning of 2 hours ago.
Try 2.5, but go on.
We don't want to like compare an anime con to a steampunk con they're just different.
Yeah.
So instead of doing that, we're going to give them like awards per category. And again, keep in mind this is just for like us specifically. We're not saying that this is like the best overall con of this that's ever existed. It's just one we had a particularly good time at.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll start with anime.
Yeah, I'm good with starting with anime.
Okay.
You want to go first?
For my like top anime con,
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably honestly going to go Dokido Winterfest. It was just such a fun and unique vibe experience. I thought it was a Sengawa project.
See, both of those I think are excellent choices. And I'll be honest, if you hadn't said both of them, I was going to say the other one, whichever one you said.
Yeah, that's why I did both of them.
Which means I now actually have to think about this.
You could just pick Tekko. I didn't say Tekko.
I enjoyed Tekko, but we only did it as one day, and we didn't actually experience that much. Like that was mostly just down to how dang well they ran their cosplay masquerade.
You can just have the other one. It's fine. I'll pick Dokido. You can pick Sengawa.
Okay. But yeah, like both really, really good job. Very enjoyable conventions. Do we want to pick an overall winner out of those two?
Now I'm also thinking about Tsubasa-Con because I really like that one, and OMG-Con, and all those other ones. The Sengawa project's a really unique thing.
Mm-hmm.
Both of these I like because they're like unique anime experiences, but I think Sengawa project is just so unique what it's trying to do. I think it might pivot for me.
Fair enough. I'm willing to accept that.
What do you think?
I think I'm okay with that. Like, I did enjoy Dokido a lot.
But Sengawa has cats.
Yes.
What? That's clearly how we should be judging.
Okay.
I don't know.
Anime conventions, apparently if you have cats, that's a strong indicator that we should go.
But I do like all of these cons, so Dokido, OMG, Tsubasa-Con. Kazi-Con, I think is Kazi-Con an anime con?
I think technically it is.
If it is, then we might have to give it to that, because it's just so well done.
Yeah.
Why do we create these awards again?
Because we needed something to do on the drive home.
Oh, yeah. Okay, you pick.
I'm going to give it to Sengawa.
Okay.
With the caveat that, like, this is a hard one, because there's a lot of things that could have taken this.
And all of these cons are, like, very big in our hearts, and places we want to go back to.
Absolutely. Okay, sci-fi?
Sci-fi. There's fewer here, so that should make it easier.
Yep, it's basically Marcon, Star-Based Indie, Concoction. Are there any others?
Gone to a couple, I think, but those are kind of the main ones. There's also Con on the Cob. We haven't really talked about that. Con on the Cob is going to get its own episode later this year. I think that's the best time to describe what it is because it's too hard otherwise.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't even know that really counts for any one particular category.
I would class it mostly as a board game con.
I mean, it's not really that either, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, they want to be known that way, so it's fine.
Yep. So.
I feel like I have to give it to Marcon.
Yeah, I also have to give it to Marcon. Like Marcon, we loved for just the sheer variety of paneling and like. Rest in peace, Marcon. Okay.
Board game / tabletop.
A Catacon.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, like
Let's shout out the other ones, though.
that is fair.
So Origins, I feel like we don't need to shout out Origins.
Yeah.
Everyone knows what it is.
Yep.
Go to a Board Game Con, you know it.
Buckeye Game Fest that we were
Buckeye
at
Game
last
Fest,
week.
which was very good also.
Really good.
CincyCon.
Yep.
And there are a couple others that are smaller that'll be throughout the year. Yukon.
Yukon.
Which was also very well done.
Yep.
I feel like we have not talked about it enough this episode.
This is fair.
But Catacon is just kind of the...
So far, it's the pinnacle of the like small to medium board game con experience.
Yes. And I want to emphasize this is also close. It's just we've had some really incredible experiences at Catacon that have just kind of tipped it over for us.
Yeah, like there were a couple of things we did there that just like we were talking about for months afterwards about how much we enjoyed them.
And it did help that they were done by the con director / owner.
Yeah.
He's just a really cool guy. But
yeah.
Again, just because your con didn't win, if you're listening to this, doesn't mean it's not an amazing con. Yes, all of these are.
All of these are fantastic.
And steampunk.
So in terms of, this is another one where we've only got 3 options and they're all good. Because there's Bourbon City,
yes.
There's Key City, and then there's the one we went to that was our first steampunk convention a few years ago in Cincinnati.
Yes, which I think was called Cincinnati Steampunk. That one's not been operational. The person who ran it has health problems. I was told that it was coming back, but I was also told that by an 11-year-old, so I don't know how accurate that information is.
Yeah. If it does come back, we absolutely go again.
Yeah.
Because that was our first experience of a steampunk con, and that, among other things, that was like our first time seeing people like, Madame Askew was at that one.
Yeah.
Asgard and Lady Wheels, like, we were completely blown away by the Asgard costume the first time we saw it.
And all of those are good. I'm probably going to have to give it to Bourbon, I think.
I think you're probably right.
Just in terms of the sheer amount of stuff they're trying to do with it.
Yeah. It's the main advantage it has over Key City is I think their venue is larger while currently having fewer people at that convention. Because my main issue with Key City, much as I enjoyed it, was those corridors got a little cramped at times.
And they did have vending in the corridors too, which I get they had to. It was the space that they needed. But I did like both of them a lot. So, or all of them. And we just really love conventions.
We do.
Do you have any other awards you want to give out?
Are there any other like specific types of cons that we haven't talked about yet?
There's a lot that kind of bleed into each other. There's just like generic pop culture cons, which would probably be GalaxyCon or Fan Expo.
Yeah.
Or just giant. I will say probably the best in terms of just like corporate cons is GalaxyCon.
Yeah.
Right now it's won over Fan Expo. Fan Expo was winning that for a while for us. But this year has just taken it down a peg or two in our minds.
Yeah.
It's outpacing the programming it needs to have, and it's too focused on the celebrities, and I don't feel like the care and the love that I saw in it the first year we were there is there anymore, and I'm sad about that.
Yeah. Whereas GalaxyCon, like, yes,
it's a corporate chill con. I feel like a number sometimes, but there are a lot of people there who are actively trying.
Yeah. And like they don't do anything that makes us, apart from the the refusal to hand microphones to anybody in the audience. Like for the most part, I don't feel the level of distrust I felt from Fan Expo this year. But yeah, I think that's most of what we've got.
Yeah, again, there's a couple of, like, fantasy is technically a variety of con, but that just kind of gets intermingled into the other types of cons generally.
Yep. Sci-fi and fantasy in particular, as anybody who's a sci-fi fan who goes to the, who tries to buy science fiction books, like, we're always lumped in with fantasy even when it doesn't make sense. It's fine.
And we haven't really gone to any horror cons yet. I am hoping to change that a little bit this fall.
Yep, but again, a lot of horror cons are in fall, as you would, autumn. They are in autumn, as you would expect.
And I will admit, horror is a genre that, like, there's no elements of any of these other things I actively dislike. Horror stuff in particular I'm a little bit disinterested in, as opposed to mildly interested in, so it's a little bit of a harder sell for me.
Yeah.
I think you're kind of on the same page with that one.
Yeah, like, again, there's a couple of horror films I like, but that's mostly because they're sci-fi films that are also horror. Like, again, Alien is a classic for a reason, The Thing is a classic for a reason, but, like, while they are horror movies, I'm more interested in them from the sci-fi fan side rather than the horror fan side. Yeah, and that kind of
thought process. Although I think Mystics and Marvels kind of counts for that. It's the only thing that falls into that category that we really went to. But we do really like Mystics and Marvels.
We do. It's mostly a photo opportunity for us, but like at a cool vendors hall. But like, it's fun.
It's basically like an oddities expo that has like a photo shoot in the back of it, and also like people you would see at an oddities expo performing. So like belly dancers and fire breathers and stuff like that. It's not really something you can spend more than a day at, but it is a lot of fun. So
it is, and we do enjoy it a lot. So yeah, I think that is it for the Connies, which is good because we're about 10 minutes from home on this 3-hour drive.
That somebody, I hope, has listened to all of this for, so thank you if you've listened. So next weekend is going to be a little bit helter-skelter. The next major con we have coming up is Colossus, which is 3 weeks from now.
Mm-hmm.
So this week and next week are going to be a little bit more experimental in terms of the presentation.
Yep.
But we will be at something.
Yep.
Or we can just do another episode of the Connies. This clearly went well.
This went fantastic. That's almost not sarcastic.
I can't tell when you're being sarcastic. You're British.
I mean, the rule is I'm British, therefore I'm always being sarcastic. So thank you very much for listening, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
And no one is graduating.
I mean, some universities definitely got their graduation next week.
Yeah, but I don't have to be there.
Yeah, that's fair. Neither do I.
Did you turn the thing off yet?
Nope.
Okay.
Bye all.
Bye.